Hello, sleepy soul. The night is quiet, the world is asleep, and something is waiting in the dark. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel and write your country and current time in the comments. Now listen carefully. The box was waiting in the hallway when I came back from my mother's funeral. Brown cardboard, soft at the corners, my name written on the lid in her handwriting. Nora. Rain slid down the apartment windows behind me. The city outside looked bruised and metallic, all wet concrete and neon pharmacy signs trembling in puddles. Somewhere downstairs, a taxi idled with its engine coughing. Upstairs, a pipe knocked in the wall. I stood there with my coat still on. I could not open it. Not yet. Grief makes ordinary objects feel staged. A mug in the sink. A pair of shoes by the door. A box with your dead mother's handwriting on it. Everything says, someone was here. Everything answers, not anymore. I had moved into that apartment 6 weeks earlier after leaving my boyfriend, Julian. He had never hit me. That was what I kept saying, as if emotional damage needed a bruise to become real. Julian had loved me like a locked room. Checked my phone, corrected my memories, told me I was too sensitive, too cold, too dependent, too unstable. By the end, I did not know whether leaving him was courage or another mistake. Then my mother died. So I moved to the city, took a smaller job, slept badly, ate toast over the sink, and tried to rebuild a life from silence. The box stayed unopened for 3 days. On the 4th night, rain tapped the glass harder than usual. A soft jazz song leaked from the cafe below my building. My refrigerator hummed with that lonely electric patience appliances have at night. I sat on the floor and cut the tape. Inside were family albums, black pages, plastic sleeves, old photographs smelling faintly of dust, glue, and attic heat. Weddings, birthdays, hospital rooms, Christmas mornings, funerals, for generations of women in my family, all with the same tired eyes. At first, I cried. Then I noticed her. In a wedding photo from 1959, my grandmother stood in a white dress beside a man I knew only from stories. Behind them, near the church door, stood a pale woman in a dark coat. She was not smiling. Her hands were folded in front of her. Her eyes looked directly at the camera. I turned the page. My mother's 5th birthday. Pink cake. Paper hats. A room full of blurred adults. The same woman stood by the window. Same coat. Same face. Pale. Still. Watching. I told myself it was an aunt. A neighbor. A family friend no one talked about. Then I found her in the hospital photo after my birth. She stood behind the glass nursery window. Her reflection overlapped with the rows of sleeping babies. She was looking at me. I stopped breathing. Rain tapped the window. The fridge hummed. Somewhere in the hall, footsteps passed my door and paused. I looked up. Silence. I looked back down at the album. The woman was in every photo. Not every page, but every important moment. Weddings, births, first birthdays, baptisms, graduations, funerals, always in the background, always pale, always watching the firstborn child. I called my Aunt Mara the next morning. She answered on the 5th ring, voice rough with cigarettes and sleep. Aunt Mara, who is the woman in the old photos? A pause. What woman? The pale woman. Dark coat. She's in Grandma's wedding pictures. Mom's birthday. My hospital photo. Silence again. Then a small sound. Not surprise. Fear. You shouldn't have those albums. I sat up straighter. Mom left them to me. She shouldn't have. Who is she? Nora. The way she said my name made my stomach tighten. Who is she? I don't know. You do. Her voice dropped. Do not scan them. Do not post them. Do not ask strangers about them. Then she hung up. That should have been enough. It wasn't. Loneliness has a way of making danger feel like company. I downloaded a photo scanning app that night and made digital copies. The app corrected color, sharpened faces, removed scratches. The pale woman became clearer. Too clear. Her eyes were light gray. Her left hand had a ring with a black stone. On the back of one photograph, in faded ink, someone had written. First belongs to E.W. I stared at those words until the letters stopped looking like language. My phone buzzed. A dating app notification. I had forgotten the app was still active. Elias matched with you. His first message arrived while rain thickened against the window. Old photos are dangerous. They remember what families edit out. Asterisk, asterisk. I went cold. His profile picture showed a man about 30, dark hair, kind eyes, standing in front of shelves of archival boxes. His bio said he restored photographs for museums. I should have blocked him. Instead, I typed, "Do you open with that line for everyone?" He replied fast, "Only people holding something heavy." I wanted to believe it was coincidence. Maybe I had mentioned family albums in my profile. Maybe the app used prompts I forgot answering. Maybe I was overthinking. I told myself it made sense. We met at a cafe 2 nights later. St. Agnes, near the tram line. The windows were fogged from inside. Rain turned the street outside silver and black. Soft jazz played from a speaker above the espresso machine. Elias sat at a corner table with 2 coffees already ordered. Mine was oat milk. No sugar. Exactly how I liked it. "I guessed," he said when I looked at the cup. I smiled because I wanted to. Because he was calm. Because he spoke gently. Because grief had made me tired of suspicion. He listened while I talked about my mother, Julian, the albums. He did not interrupt. He did not laugh. He did not tell me I was imagining things. When I showed him the photos, his face became serious. "Same woman," he said. "You see it too?" "I do." That relief almost hurt. He zoomed in on the oldest photograph. This could be a family pattern. Not one person, maybe several women styled the same way. Across 4 generations? Some families keep rituals. The word rituals stayed between us. Outside, a siren passed and faded. Elias looked at me. "Did your mother ever talk about a firstborn?" My fingers tightened around the coffee cup. "No. Were you the first?" "Yes." His expression softened. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For being the one who has to learn the truth." That should have sounded theatrical. It didn't. It sounded like he already knew me. After that, he became useful. Too useful. He helped me clean the scans. He traced the ring in the woman's hand to an old maternity home called Winter House. He found newspaper clippings about private placements in the 1940s and 1950s. Women sent there to give birth quietly. Children adopted without records. Families protected from scandal. In one archive, there was a staff photo. 1947. Nurses lined up outside a brick building. In the middle stood the pale woman. Her name was written underneath. Evelyn Winter. E.W. First belongs to E.W. I sent the image to Aunt Mara. She called within minutes. Her voice shook. "Where did you get that? Tell me what happened. You need to stop." "No. She helped your great-grandmother," Mara said. I waited. Rain tapped the cafe window beside me. Elias sat across from me, silent, watching my face. "Helped how?" "There was money. Shame. A baby. I don't know all of it." "You know enough." Aunt Mara inhaled. "Our family made an agreement with Winter House. The firstborn child of every generation would be placed with them for a time. Raised. Trained. Watched. They called it guardianship. That's insane. It was legal then. Or close enough. What does for a time mean?" Another pause. "Some came back. Some. Nora, your mother ran before they could take you." The cafe noise vanished. The cups. The music. The hiss of milk steaming. Everything fell away except my aunt's breathing in my ear. "She hid you," Mara said. "She changed cities. Changed names. She never let anyone take pictures of you in public. She thought it was over when Evelyn died." I looked at Elias. He looked sad. Not shocked. Sad. I ended the call. "You knew," I said. "I suspected." "No. You knew." He folded his hands on the table. "Nora, I'm trying to help you understand before someone less gentle does." There it was. The first lock turning. I stood. "Nora," he said. I walked into the rain. The city was cold and bright. Neon split under my shoes. A bus exhaled at the curb. Somewhere behind me, Elias called my name once. Not loud. He knew better. That night, my phone began buzzing at 2:13 a.m. Unknown number. One ring. Then nothing. The next night, an email arrived from an address that looked like my mother's old account. Subject line: "You were promised before you were born." The body had one attachment. A voice note. I clicked it with shaking hands. Static. Then my mother's voice. "Nora, if you ever find the albums, don't trust anyone who offers to explain them." I dropped the phone. My mother had been dead for 9 days. I played it again. The voice was almost perfect. Almost. The pauses were too clean. The sadness too polished. AI. Someone had built my dead mother from old videos, voicemails, birthday clips, whatever scraps they could steal from the internet. My grief had been turned into software. I checked the email metadata because Elias had taught me how. The sender's display name was fake. The originating IP was masked. But one field remained. A device label. EW_archive_04. My apartment seemed to shrink around me. The refrigerator hummed. The hallway floor creaked. Footsteps stopped outside my door. I stared at the knob. A paper slid underneath. Small. Cream-colored. Old-fashioned. On it, in black ink, "Firstborns keep families alive." I did not sleep. By morning, the paper was in a plastic bag. My phone was on airplane mode, and I was sitting in the police station across from Detective Hale. She had short gray hair and the patient expression of someone who had heard too many unbelievable truths. I showed her the photos, the email, the voice note, the paper. She did not laugh. That was the first mercy. "Do you know this man?" she asked, turning my phone toward me. Elias's profile picture. I nodded. "He's been helping me." Hale's mouth tightened. "His name isn't Elias." She printed a page from a database and slid it across the desk. His real name was Adrian Vale, private investigator, former employee of a reputation management firm, connected to 2 sealed civil complaints involving stalking and coercive surveillance. Beside his name was another one, Winter Foundation, not Winter House. Foundation, still active, still registered, still collecting donations under words like heritage, family preservation, maternal support. Detective Hale leaned forward. "Your aunt contacted us this morning. She said your family may have been involved with a private adoption network. We've had similar reports from other families. Old agreements, missing firstborns, people pressured into silence. The woman in the photos? Evelyn Winter existed. She died in 1988, but she's in photos after that." Hale nodded. "We think the foundation kept using her image. Different women styled to resemble her, sometimes physically present, sometimes inserted into photos later. It becomes mythology. A ghost story makes people easier to control. Realistic. That word should have comforted me. It didn't. A ghost can haunt you. People can organize. That is worse. The police told me not to go home, but I had evidence there. The albums, my mother's box, the note, the originals. Detective Hale sent 2 officers with me. The hallway smelled like wet wool and old paint. My hands shook so badly I dropped my keys twice. Inside, the apartment was too still. Then my laptop opened by itself. The screen lit the dark room. A video call. No name. Just a pale woman on the screen. Not old. Not Evelyn. A younger woman wearing the same dark coat, hair parted in the same severe line, face powdered almost white. Behind her, shelves of archival boxes. "Nora," she said. Her voice was calm, soft, educated. "You have been frightened unnecessarily." One officer moved toward the laptop. "Don't touch it," Hale said through the phone speaker. "Record." The woman smiled faintly. "We are not your enemies. Your mother was unstable. She misunderstood an obligation as a threat." "Who are you?" I asked. "A caretaker." "No. Your name." Names are less important than continuity. The phrase made my skin crawl. She tilted her head. Your family survived because Evelyn Winter intervened. Debts were paid, reputations preserved, children educated, doors opened. Every generation gave back what was promised. Children aren't payments. No, she said. They are legacies. The officer beside me whispered into his radio. The woman's eyes shifted, as if listening to something off-screen. You brought police into a family matter. You sent fake messages from my dead mother. We used familiar language to reduce panic. I almost laughed. That was what monsters sounded like now. Not screaming. Not threats. Policy language. Therapeutic language. Compliance dressed as care. What do you want from me? I asked. The woman softened. It was practiced. We want what was agreed to. You were the firstborn. If you have a child, that child belongs within the Foundation's protection. Until then, you belong within our records. There is no agreement. There is history. That's not the same thing. For the first time, her face hardened. Behind me, the floor creaked. Not from the hall. From the bedroom. One officer turned. Adrian stepped out slowly, hands visible. Elias. His face was wet from rain. His expression was gentle, almost disappointed. Nora, he said, this didn't need to become frightening. I stepped back. You broke into my apartment. I had a key copied. For emergencies. The officer ordered him to stop moving. Adrian did. He looked only at me. I was kind to you. That doesn't make this kindness. I gave you the truth gradually. You watched me grieve. I watched over you. The difference mattered to him. That was the sickness. Police entered from the hall seconds later. Adrian did not fight. People like him rarely do when the room fills with witnesses. They rely on privacy, on confusion, on the victim sounding unstable, on love leaving no fingerprints. They found cameras in my smoke detector and behind a framed print I had bought at a flea market, a tracker under my car, a cloned SIM request in my name, copies of my medical forms, screenshots of my dating profile, a folder of my social media posts going back years. They found drafts of messages I had not yet received. One was scheduled for my birthday, another for the anniversary of my mother's death, another, written in my mother's stolen voice, began. Sweetheart, it is time to come home. The Winter Foundation office was raided 2 days later. Detective Hale called it an investigation into fraud, unlawful surveillance, coercion, identity theft, and illegal adoption records. The news called it a cult. My aunt called it an old sin finally exposed. I did not know what to call it. A family secret is not a secret when everyone pays for it. It is an inheritance. Months passed. The rain turned to snow, then back to rain. I moved again. Different apartment. Higher floor. No cafe downstairs. No jazz leaking through the walls. I bought cheap curtains and kept them closed at night. I stopped using dating apps. I deleted old accounts. I changed every password twice and still did not feel clean. The album stayed with the police for evidence, but I kept one scan. My hospital photo. My mother in the bed, exhausted and smiling. Me behind the nursery glass. And in the background, the pale woman watching. For a long time, I hated that photo. Then I noticed something I had missed. My mother's hand was raised slightly. Not waving. Blocking. Even half-conscious, even afraid, she had placed her body between me and the woman in the glass. That became the memory I kept. Not the watcher. The shield. I used to think family history was something behind us. Old photographs. Dead names. Dust in boxes. But history is not behind us if someone is still using it. It stands in the background. It learns our routines. It saves our passwords. It speaks in voices we miss. And sometimes it calls itself love because love is the easiest mask to wear. Trust is not the absence of fear. It is the presence of boundaries. Privacy is not secrecy. It is shelter. And no one is entitled to enter your life just because they know where the old doors are. Story 2. The first night back in my grandmother's house, it rained like the city was trying to erase itself. Water slid down the upstairs windows in trembling lines. Neon from the pharmacy sign across the street bled red and green across the ceiling. The old radiator clicked in the wall. The fridge hummed below me like a tired animal. I was 17, too old to be comforted by my mother leaving the hallway light on. Too young to admit I needed it. Grandma had been buried 3 days earlier under a sky the color of wet ash. After the funeral, Mom said we needed somewhere quieter, cheaper, somewhere to start over. She meant after Dad. She meant after the yelling, the slammed doors, the way he could make a room feel smaller just by entering it. She meant after I stopped sleeping. So we moved into Grandma's narrow brick house above the old laundromat on Mercer Street, where the sidewalks shone black after rain, and the cafes stayed open late for people who did not want to go home. There were 3 bedrooms upstairs, mine, Mom's, and the locked room at the end of the hall. "It's storage," Mom said when I asked. Her voice was calm, too calm. The door was painted the same dull cream as the walls, but older somehow, thicker. The frame around it had been sealed with strips of painted wood, as if someone had tried to make the room disappear politely. There was no handle, only a keyhole. At night, the door breathed. Not loudly, not like something dramatic. It expanded and contracted by millimeters, so faint I thought the shadows were moving. The first time I saw it, I stood barefoot in the hallway, holding my phone like a weapon, listening to rain tap the window at the stair landing. In, out. The door bowed softly, then relaxed. I told myself it was the house settling. Old wood, cold air, pressure changes. I wanted to believe it. The next morning, I went to a cafe 2 blocks away called Blue Hour. It had fogged windows, soft jazz, and tables scratched with initials. I sat by the glass, watching buses hiss through puddles, pretending I was the kind of person who could rebuild themselves with coffee and a notebook. That was where I met Elias. He asked if the empty chair was taken. He was maybe 19. Dark coat, careful hands, a voice so gentle it made me suspicious for almost 3 seconds. "You look like you're listening to something that isn't here," he said. I should have found that strange. Instead, I laughed, because it was exactly true. We talked for 40 minutes. About grief, rain, bad fathers, cities that made loneliness feel cinematic. He said, "Sometimes a house keeps the shape of what happened inside it." I looked up. He smiled softly. "My mom was into old architecture," he said. "Sorry, weird thing to say." I told myself it made sense. Elias became familiar quickly. Too quickly. He found me on Instagram that night, though I had not given him my last name. His message arrived at 12:13 a.m., while the locked door pulsed quietly at the end of the hall. "You got home safe?" I stared at the screen. The hallway was dark. The radiator clicked. From behind the sealed door came the faintest sound. Not breathing this time. A scrape. Slow. Measured. I typed back, "Yeah. How did you find me?" Asterisk asterisk. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Then, small city. Also, you liked Blue Hour's page. Asterisk asterisk. Maybe I was overthinking. For 2 weeks, Elias was everything I needed. He sent voice notes when I couldn't sleep. His voice low, steady, intimate. "Breathe in for 4, he would say. "Hold. Let it go." Rain tapped my window. My phone glowed against my pillow. His voice filled the room. He remembered everything. That I hated bananas. That I used my grandmother's chipped blue mug. That I took the 7:40 bus when it rained because walking past the underpass made me nervous. That my father used to call me June Bug. I had never told him that. When I asked, he paused. "You mentioned it," he said. "No, I didn't." "You did. At the cafe. You were tired." His tone was kind, almost hurt, and because I was lonely, I apologized. That is what frightens me now. Not that he lied, that I helped him do it. The locked room got worse in small ways. A warm line of air under the door. A smell like dust and old fabric. A humming from inside that matched no appliance in the house. Mom avoided the hallway after dark. One night, I asked her again, "What's in there?" She stood at the sink, washing the same plate for too long. "Your grandmother kept things," she said. What things? Family things. The faucet ran. Her reflection in the kitchen window looked older than she was. Leave it alone, Mara. That was the first time I knew storage was not storage. The first real evidence came from an email. It arrived from my school account at 2:06 a.m. Subject: Welcome back, June Bug. No body, only an attachment. A photograph. Me asleep in my room. Taken from above. My skin went cold so fast I couldn't move. Rain tapped the glass. Somewhere down the street, a siren rose and faded. I turned on every light. Checked the window locks. Checked the closet. Checked under the bed like a child. Then I noticed the angle. The photo had not been taken from inside my room. It had been taken through the wall vent near the ceiling. The vent connected to the old ductwork. The ductwork ran past the locked room. Mom called the police in the morning. 2 officers came. One young, one tired. They walked through the house, looked at the sealed door, asked about ex-boyfriends, classmates, online threats. I told them about Elias. The younger officer searched his name. Nothing. No local records. No student ID. No address. Could be fake, he said. Mom sat very still. I messaged Elias while they were there. Police are here. Someone took a picture of me sleeping, asterisk asterisk. He responded almost instantly. Don't let them make you feel crazy. Not, are you okay? Not, what happened? Just that. Don't let them make you feel crazy. The tired officer asked if he could see the message. When he did, his face changed. You told him police were here? Yes. He looked toward the ceiling. How did he know what they might say? That night, the locked room breathed harder. The door bowed outward. In. Out. A slow wooden lung. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A voice note. I pressed play with shaking hands. At first there was silence. Then soft jazz. The same song Blue Hour played on rainy afternoons. Then Elias's voice. Or something like his voice. Mara, it said. You keep looking at the wrong door. Behind the locked door, something knocked once. Not loud. Just enough. Mom finally told me the truth in the car, parked outside a 24-hour diner while rain silvered the windshield. Before I was born, Grandma had taken in a boy. Not family, not officially. A neighbor's son. Quiet, brilliant, wrong in ways adults called troubled because it sounded less frightening. His name was Adrian Vale. He became obsessed with my aunt, Clara, who was 16 then. He recorded her, followed her, made fake letters from boys at school, called the house and played songs she liked, left gifts in places he should not have known about. When Clara tried to cut him off, he told her no one would believe her. Then Clara disappeared for 18 hours. When she came back, she never fully came back. Grandma refused to go to police. Shame, fear, family reputation. Instead, Grandpa locked Adrian in the upstairs room until they figured out what to do. Mom's voice thinned. They thought it would be one night. What happened? She looked through the wet windshield. Grandpa had a heart attack that morning. Grandma panicked. She told everyone Adrian ran away. My stomach turned. No. She built over the room. Sealed it. She said he was gone. But he wasn't. Mom closed her eyes. No. The house had not been breathing. The room had been ventilated. Hidden ducts. Old vents. A space between walls. A secret made architectural. Adrian had died in there decades ago. But someone had found him. Or found what he left behind. The police returned with tools. Inside the locked room, they found no ghost. Only evidence. A narrow chamber behind the false wall. Rusted bed frame. Old cassette tapes. Journals wrapped in plastic. Maps of the house. Peepholes drilled into vents. And newer things. A router hidden in the wall. Battery packs. A pinhole camera. A small microphone above my ceiling vent. A burner phone taped beneath a floorboard. On the phone were folders. My name. My mother's name. Clara's name. Other girls' names. Dozens. Screenshots from dating apps. Fake profiles. Voice samples. AI-generated clips. Passwords. Locations. metadata from photos, bus schedules, cafe receipts, a document titled Mara, Trust Sequence. The comforting stranger had been designed. Elias was not Elias. His real name was Noah Bell, 24, former IT contractor. He had bought Grandma's old furniture at an estate sale before the funeral. Found Adrian's journals hidden in a desk drawer. Read them like instructions, then improved them. He studied me before I knew he existed. My playlists, my breakup posts, my deleted captions, my school email, my grief. He did not fall in love with me. He built a room inside my loneliness and waited for me to enter. They arrested him outside Blue Hour. He was sitting at my table, wearing the same dark coat. When the officers approached, he did not run. He looked through the rain-streaked glass at me across the street and smiled with terrible gentleness, as if we shared something, as if survival were a misunderstanding between us. Later, the police told us he had used fake accounts to contact other girls. Different names, different voices, same pattern. Attention, comfort, mirroring, then control. He had never needed the locked room, but he loved it. A room built around someone who never left. A perfect metaphor, maybe, or a perfect weapon. We moved out before winter. Mom cried when we packed Grandma's dishes. I did not. Not then. Trauma is strange like that. Sometimes the body saves emotion for safer rooms. Now I live in an apartment with white walls and loud pipes. I keep my phone on silent. I cover my laptop camera. I do not post in real time. I do not let strangers become familiar too quickly. Sometimes at night, the refrigerator hums. A car passes. Rain touches the window. And for half a second, I hear it again. In, out. A door breathing in the dark. I used to think privacy meant having nothing to hide. Now I think privacy is where the self survives. A boundary is not a wall because you hate the world. It is a door you are allowed to open yourself. And trust, real trust, does not pick the lock. Story 3. When I moved back into my parents' house, I told everyone it was temporary. That was the clean version. The truth was uglier. I had dropped out of school, ended a relationship that had slowly taught me to hate my own instincts, and returned to the old house with 2 suitcases, a cracked phone screen, and a kind of exhaustion sleep couldn't touch. My parents lived on the edge of the city, where the houses sat too far apart and the streetlights buzzed above wet pavement. At night, fog came up from the drainage canal behind the yard and pressed itself against the windows. The city glowed faintly beyond the trees. Neon signs, apartment towers, distant sirens, life happening somewhere else. Inside, the house sounded exactly as I remembered. The refrigerator humming, the pipes ticking, the furnace breathing through the vents, floorboards sighing under weight that wasn't there. My mother called it settling. My father called it an old house. I called it listening. For the first week, I barely left my room. Rain tapped the glass. My phone buzzed with old messages I didn't answer. I deleted dating apps, then downloaded them again, then deleted them before midnight. I listened to soft jazz through cheap headphones because silence made my thoughts too loud. Then I met Claire, not on an app, at a cafe near the bus station, the kind with fogged windows and a green neon sign that flickered whenever the espresso machine started. She was sitting alone with a laptop covered in stickers, drinking black coffee, and reading a book about family trauma. I noticed the title. She noticed me noticing. "Comfort reading," she said. I smiled because I didn't know what else to do. She had a calm voice, soft but not weak. She asked questions like she already knew the places I avoided in myself. "You look like someone who came home but doesn't feel safe there," she said after 20 minutes. I should have found that strange. Instead, I felt relieved. Some people enter your life like a blanket. You don't ask who made them. You just get cold and reach. Claire became that. We met at the cafe 3 times that week. She listened when I talked about my ex, about how love could become a room where every door locked from the outside, about how my parents treated my return like an illness they were trying not to name. "You're not broken," Claire said once. watching rain stripe the window beside us. You're just surrounded by people who prefer you confused. That sentence stayed with me. It sounded like comfort. It also sounded like permission. The baby monitor was in the attic. I found it on a Thursday night during a storm, when my mother asked me to bring down an old box of winter blankets. The attic smelled like dust, cardboard, and insulation. Rain hit the roof in hard, fast bursts. My flashlight beam moved over boxes marked Christmas, taxes, kitchen, school. Then I saw the monitor. It sat behind a cracked plastic storage bin, yellowed with age. One of those old two-piece baby monitors from the early 2000s. A small white receiver with a speaker grill, a bent antenna, and a faded sticker of a blue moon. I held it in my hand. It felt cold. Too cold for the attic. I don't know why I brought it downstairs. Maybe nostalgia. Maybe curiosity. Maybe some part of me wanted proof that this house had once held gentler sounds than arguments behind closed doors. In my room, I plugged it in. Static filled the speaker. Soft at first. Then louder. A low breath of white noise. I almost laughed. Then a voice whispered my name. Evan. I stopped moving. The rain kept tapping the window. The furnace hummed through the wall. I leaned closer. Static. Then again. Evan. Not loud. Not dramatic. A child's voice. Thin. Sleepy. Close. My hands went numb. I unplugged the monitor. The room fell silent so fast it felt physical. For 10 minutes, I sat on the edge of my bed, listening to my own breathing. Then I plugged it back in. Static. A pause. Don't trust them. I took the monitor downstairs. My parents were in the kitchen. My mother was loading the dishwasher too carefully. My father stood by the sink, scrolling his phone, the blue light flattening his face. Where did this come from? I asked. The room changed before anyone spoke. My mother dropped a plate. It didn't break. It just hit the counter with a sharp, ugly sound. My father looked at the monitor like it was an animal that had crawled into the house. Where did you find that? He said. The attic. Put it back. His voice was too fast, too controlled. Was it mine? My mother wiped her hands on a towel. Her eyes were wet, but her face was blank. No, she said. Then whose was it? No answer. The dishwasher hummed. Rain scratched at the kitchen windows. My father took one step toward me. Evan, put it back. Something in his tone made me feel 12 years old again. Small. Wrong. In the way. I wanted to obey. Instead, I said, was there another baby? My mother covered her mouth. My father said, that's enough. That night, the monitor whispered until dawn. Not sentences at first. Fragments. Cold. Dark. He knows. Ask about me. I recorded it on my phone. The file captured only static. No voice. No proof. I sent it to Claire anyway. She replied at 2:13 a.m. You need to be careful. Families hide things most violently when they call it protection. Asterisk, asterisk. I stared at the message. My phone buzzed again. Did they ever call you Evie? I sat up. No one called me that. No one except my mother, years ago, when I was very small and sick with fever. I remembered her sitting by my bed, pressing a cold cloth to my forehead, whispering, Evie, stay with me. I had never told Claire. I typed, how did you know that? 3 dots appeared. Vanished. Appeared again. You mentioned it at the cafe. I hadn't. I wanted to believe it. Maybe I was overthinking. Trauma makes memory slippery. That is what people say when they want your fear to embarrass itself. The next morning, I searched the house. Not openly. My parents had started watching me the way people watch a cracked glass near the edge of a table. I checked old photo albums, baby pictures, hospital bracelets in a drawer, emails on the family desktop, my father's old hard drive in the study. There were gaps. Not obvious ones, careful ones. My first birthday album began at month 11. The hospital folder had only one discharge form. My birth certificate had been scanned, but the original was missing. I found one photograph tucked behind a frame in the hallway. My mother, younger and thinner, standing in a hospital room. She held a baby. My father stood beside her, holding another. 2 blue blankets, 2 tiny faces. The second face was half hidden by glare. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, Evan and Elias. 3 days old, asterisk asterisk. I read the name until it stopped looking real. Elias, my brother, my twin. A person-shaped absence had been living inside the house all along. That evening, my parents admitted only what the photograph made impossible. Yes, my mother said. You had a twin. Had. That word. Past tense as a locked door. What happened to him? My father stared at the table. My mother said he got sick. How sick? Very. Did he die? She looked at my father. He looked away. The refrigerator hummed between us. Finally, my father said, we lost him. Not he died. Not he was buried. We lost him. A phrase with fog in it. The monitor whispered that night, before I even turned off the light. They didn't lose me. My skin tightened. Static crackled. They gave me away. I didn't sleep. By morning, Claire was waiting outside my house. She stood under a black umbrella, rain silvering the edges. She looked concerned. Safe. Like someone who had walked through bad weather just to reach me. You shouldn't be alone with this, she said. I let her in. That was my mistake. She moved through the house slowly, noticing details. The family photos, the locked study, the attic door. When my mother saw her, something passed across her face. Recognition, fear, then politeness. Claire, my mother said. Claire smiled. Mrs. Voss. I turned. You know each other? My mother's lips parted. Claire answered first, calmly. We met once, years ago. I was doing research on closed adoptions. My father came in from the hallway. His face hardened. You need to leave. Claire didn't flinch. Still protecting the story? My father moved toward her, but my mother grabbed his arm. The whole house seemed to hold its breath. Then the baby monitor, sitting on the kitchen counter, crackled to life. Evan, my mother sobbed. Claire looked at me, not surprised, pleased. That was the first moment I felt afraid of her. Not uncertain, afraid. After she left, my father locked the doors and finally told me the truth. Elias hadn't died. He had been born with complications. He cried constantly. My mother had been hospitalized for exhaustion. My father was drowning in debt. A private adoption counselor had approached them through a church group and offered what he called a temporary placement. Temporary, my mother whispered. That's what they said, but there was no temporary. The paperwork disappeared. The agency dissolved. The counselor vanished. My parents kept me. They lost Elias into a system that had no clean records and no mercy for people ashamed enough to stay quiet. Why didn't you look for him? I asked. My father's face collapsed in slow motion. We did. Not enough. He didn't defend himself. That made it worse. The monitor whispered again that night. But now I heard something beneath the voice. A faint click before each sentence. A compression artifact. Digital. Not a ghost. A transmission. I opened the casing with a screwdriver and found new parts soldered inside the old plastic. A tiny receiver. A cellular module. A battery pack no bigger than a matchbox. Someone had rebuilt it. Someone had put it in the attic. Someone wanted me to find it. My laptop chimed. A new email. Subject, Elias Voss Search Archive. Inside were hospital records, adoption documents, scans of signatures, old addresses, and a link to a private cloud folder. The metadata on the files had been stripped, except one. Author, C. Hale. Claire Hale. I searched her name. At first, I found a therapist directory, a grief forum, a podcast interview about adoption trauma, a social media account full of rain-blurred city photos and quotes about memory. Then I found the archived news article. 7 families. 7 young men contacted through support groups, dating apps, and trauma forums. All told they had missing siblings. All manipulated with old family objects, fake records, burner phones, AI voice recreations, and stolen medical files. One had disappeared for 3 days before police found him in a rented cabin, terrified and convinced his parents had replaced his family history. Claire's real name was not Claire. It was Mara Ellison, former private investigator, band therapist, digital stalker. She specialized in broken families, and she had found mine. The baby monitor crackled. "Evan," the voice whispered, but now I heard the woman behind the child. The softness was engineered. The pauses were chosen. The fear was scripted. I picked up the monitor. "You're not Elias." Static. Then the voice changed. No longer a child. Claire's voice came through, warm and disappointed. "You needed the truth. You used him. I found what your parents buried. You lied. I guided you." The word slid under my skin. Guided. That was how people like her described control when they wanted it to sound holy. My phone buzzed. A video appeared. Live feed. My parents in the living room. My father standing by the window. My mother crying into her hands. The camera angle came from inside the house. Claire had planted cameras. The floor creaked above me. The attic. My father heard it too. We all looked up. Then came 3 soft knocks from the ceiling. Not a ghost. A person. Mara had never left. She was inside the house. My father called the police. My mother pulled me toward the back door. But the monitor whispered again, closer now, from the table. "Don't run, Evie." Hearing my childhood nickname in that stolen voice made something clear inside me. Fear became anger. Not loud. Clean. I opened the back door and pushed my mother outside into the rain. My father followed, phone to his ear, voice shaking as he gave the address. I stayed long enough to grab the old photograph. Evan and Elias. 3 days old. Then I ran. Behind me upstairs, a door opened. Footsteps crossed the ceiling. Slow. Measured. As if she still believed she controlled the scene. Police lights arrived through fog and rain. Red and blue slid across the windows, across the wet grass, across my mother's face. Mara came out through the front door 10 minutes later. Hands raised. Hair dry. Expression calm. She looked at me like we were sharing a private sadness. "You were never going to know yourself in that house," she said. A police officer told her to stop talking. She looked past him. At me. "I gave you your brother." "No," I said. "You gave me a wound and called it a gift." For the first time, her face changed. Not anger. Loss. Like something she owned had spoken without permission. They found equipment in the attic. Transmitters. Cameras. A laptop. Printed family records. My deleted dating profiles. Voice samples taken from videos. A folder of cafe notes. My routines. My medication schedule. My mother's old church contacts. My father's debts. She had known where to press because she had studied the bruise. The police later confirmed some of what she sent was real. Elias had existed. The adoption counselor had been real too. Whether Elias was alive, no one could say. Not yet. Maybe never. That uncertainty became a room I still live beside. I don't enter it every day, but I know it is there. After the arrest, my parents and I did not become instantly honest. Families don't heal like endings in movies. Truth arrives like floodwater. It saves and destroys at the same time. My mother started saying Elias's name. My father stopped pretending silence was protection. And I learned that love can fail without becoming hate. That was harder to accept. Months later, I visited the cafe where I had first met Claire. The green neon sign still flickered. Rain blurred the windows. Soft jazz played from the ceiling speakers. People sat alone with laptops, offering pieces of themselves to the blue glow. I watched my reflection in the glass. For a moment, I looked like two people. One visible, one missing. I thought about Elias, about the monitor, about the small white plastic box that had carried lies in the shape of a child's voice. I used to think secrets stayed buried because people forgot them. Now I know better. Secrets stay buried because someone benefits from the silence. An obsession is patient. It waits in old objects, in fake profiles, in gentle questions. in people who learn your pain so precisely that their invasion feels like recognition. Trust is not believing the first person who names your wound. Privacy is not a wall built against love. It is the border that tells love where to stop. My parents broke that border with silence. Mara broke it with attention. Both taught me the same thing. A person's history is not a house anyone else gets to rearrange. Memory is not public property, and being known is only safe when you are still allowed to keep a door closed. Story 4. Every Sunday, my mother set 5 plates for 4 people. That was one of the first things I remembered about childhood. Not birthdays, not school, not family holidays. The 5th plate, white porcelain, silver fork, folded napkin, a glass of water filled exactly halfway, a serving of whatever we were eating placed carefully in front of the empty chair at the end of the table. No one sat there. No one touched the food, and no one explained it. When I was 8, I asked, "Who is that for?" My father stopped cutting his chicken. My sister looked down. My mother's hand tightened around the serving spoon until her knuckles lost color. The rain tapped against the dining room windows. The refrigerator hummed behind the kitchen wall. Somewhere in the neighborhood, a dog barked once and then went quiet. My father said, "We don't talk about guests who haven't arrived." That was the end of it. In our house, silence was not absence. It was furniture. It had weight. It had corners. Years later, after my divorce, I moved back to the city where I grew up. Not into my parents' house. I couldn't do that. I rented a small apartment above a closed tailor shop, 3 blocks from the train station. At night, neon from the pharmacy across the street leaked through my blinds and painted my ceiling green. The apartment had bad heating, thin walls, a refrigerator that hummed like it was trying to remember a song. I told people I had moved back to recover. That was the clean version. The truth was uglier. My marriage had ended slowly, through corrections. Small ones, constant ones. The way I loaded dishes. The way I remembered arguments. The way I apologized too late or too much. By the end, I no longer trusted my own version of a room I had just stood in. So I came home. Not because home was safe, because damage makes old fears feel familiar. My mother invited me to Sunday dinner the first week I returned. "Your father would like to see you," she said. "What about you?" A pause. Rain hissed through the phone line, or maybe it was static. Of course I would. I went because loneliness is not proud. The city was wet and cold that evening. Headlights blurred across the streets. Cafe windows glowed amber through fog. People passed beneath umbrellas, faces hidden, footsteps soft on the pavement. My parents' house looked smaller than I remembered. The porch light buzzed. The hallway smelled of lemon polish, old wood, and roasted onions. My mother hugged me too carefully, like I was carrying something breakable she did not want to name. My father shook my hand. That hurt more than if he had ignored me. Dinner was quiet. My sister, Elise, was there with her husband. They talked about school fees, traffic, a leaking sink. Ordinary things. Safe things. Then I saw it. The 5th plate. At the end of the table. White porcelain. Folded napkin. Glass half full. My chest tightened. "You still do that?" I asked. No one answered. The room changed. Not visibly, but the air became older. My father set down his knife. My mother looked toward the window, where rain moved down the glass in thin, trembling lines. Elise whispered, "Adam." Just my name. A warning. I laughed softly, because adults laugh when they are afraid of sounding afraid. "I'm serious." "Why?" My mother stood. I forgot the bread. There was bread already on the table. She went to the kitchen anyway. That night, back in my apartment, my phone buzzed at 12:17 a.m. A dating app notification. I had installed the app 2 days earlier, then regretted it immediately. Haven. Soft colors. Gentle language. Promises about meaningful connection. Her name was Mara. Her profile photo showed her sitting in a cafe window while rain blurred the street behind her. Dark hair. Gray sweater. Calm eyes. Her message said, "You look like someone who came home for reasons he doesn't fully understand." I stared at it in the green pharmacy glow. The refrigerator hummed. A siren passed somewhere far away. I should have deleted the app. Instead, I typed, "That obvious?" She replied, "Only to people who notice empty chairs." My hands went cold. I told myself it was a coincidence. Maybe my profile mentioned family. Maybe I had posted something years ago. Maybe empty chairs were just a metaphor people used. Maybe I was overthinking. I wanted to believe it. Mara was easy to talk to. That was the dangerous part. She didn't flirt hard. She didn't demand. She listened with a kind of stillness that felt almost medicinal. When I told her about my divorce, she said, "Sometimes control sounds like concern until you hear it from far away." I had to put the phone down after that. It was too accurate, too clean. She sent voice notes instead of long texts. Her voice was low, measured, intimate without trying to be. Behind her, there was often soft jazz, a faint piano, rain against glass, appliances humming. The same sounds as my apartment, the same loneliness. After a week, I met her in person at a cafe near the station. The windows were fogged. Blue neon from the laundromat across the street flickered over her face. She ordered black coffee for me before I arrived. "I don't drink it black," I said. "You used to," she replied. I smiled, uncomfortable. "When?" "Before someone made you ashamed of liking bitter things." I stared at her. She stirred her tea slowly. "I'm sorry," she said. That sounded invasive. It did, but it also sounded like being understood. And after years of being misunderstood on purpose, understanding can feel like warmth. I told myself it made sense. People guessed. People observed. People searched online. The next Sunday, I went back to my parents' house. The fifth plate was there again. But this time, something had changed. There was a small black mark on the underside of the glass. Not dirt, ink. A tiny symbol, almost like a circle cut by a line. I touched it. My mother saw. Her face emptied. "Don't," she said. "What is this?" "Nothing." "Mom." She reached for the glass, but my father spoke first. "Leave it." His voice was calm. That old calm. The kind parents use when fear has lived with them so long it becomes etiquette. During dinner, I heard something at the back door. Not a knock. A scrape. Soft. Patient. Like a key being tested. Elise stopped talking mid-sentence. Her husband did not notice. He was showing my father something on his phone. The scrape came again. My mother closed her eyes. At the empty place setting, the water in the glass trembled. No one moved. Later, while my mother washed dishes, I went upstairs to the room that had been mine as a child. It was a storage room now. Boxes. Old blankets. A dead printer. My childhood desk pushed against the wall. I opened the bottom drawer. I don't know why. Maybe because fear has a map. Inside was a stack of envelopes tied with kitchen string. Each had a date written on it. Sundays. Years of Sundays. Inside the first envelope was cash. Inside the second, a printed email. Inside the third, a photograph of our dining table with the fifth plate set. On the back, someone had written, "Received." My phone buzzed. "Mara, you shouldn't go through old rooms alone." I looked toward the window. The glass showed my reflection. Behind me, the hallway was empty. Another message came. "Your mother always kept things in the wrong drawer." I could hear my pulse. Downstairs, the pipes clicked. A floorboard creaked. I put the envelopes back exactly as I found them. That night, I didn't sleep. At 2:08 a.m., a voice note arrived from an unknown number. I pressed play. For a few seconds, there was only breathing. Then my mother's voice. "Adam, if you love us, stop asking." I sat up in bed. The voice was perfect. Too perfect. My mother's slight rasp. Her careful pauses. The way she said my name like she was apologizing for needing me. I called her immediately. She answered after 5 rings, confused and sleepy. "I didn't send anything," she said. In the silence after she spoke, I heard something on her end. A knock. 3 slow taps. Then the line went dead. The police called it harassment when I reported it. "Could be a scam," the officer said. AI voice cloning. Family impersonation. financial pressure. He said those words like labels made them smaller. I asked about the envelopes. He told me to bring evidence. When I went back to the house the next morning, the drawer was empty. My mother said she didn't know what I meant. My father said I had been under stress. Elise refused to look at me. That evening, Mara invited me to her apartment. "I think you need somewhere quiet," she said. Her place was above a wine shop in a narrow street where the rain gathered in broken cobblestones. Inside, it smelled like sandalwood and coffee. There were books stacked on the floor, a record player by the window, soft jazz turning in the dim light. It felt safe. That was the worst thing. She made tea and sat across from me. "You're not imagining it," she said. I looked up. She watched me carefully. "Your family has a secret. They trained you not to see it." My throat tightened. "How do you know?" "Families like yours leave patterns." "Families like mine?" She smiled sadly. "Good houses with locked rooms." I wanted to tell her everything. The plate, the envelopes, the voice note, the scraping at the door. But some surviving part of me held back. Instead, I asked, "Have you been watching my family?" She did not answer immediately. Rain tapped the window. The record clicked softly. Then she said, "Watching is such an ugly word for caring." There it was, the first clear line. I should have stood up. I didn't. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe trauma made me suspicious of kindness. Maybe I had forgotten what intimacy sounded like. Then Mara touched my wrist and said, "Little Fox, listen to me." Little Fox, my father's nickname for me when I was small. No one called me that after I turned 10. No one outside the family knew it. I pulled my hand away. Her face changed. Not much, just enough. The softness stayed, but the warmth left. "How do you know that?" She looked almost disappointed. "Because you were always the one they were saving." I left without my coat. Outside, rain soaked through my shirt in seconds. Neon reflected under my feet. The city looked endless and wet and indifferent. My phone buzzed as I ran. Unknown number. A photo. Me walking away from Mara's building. Taken from behind. Another buzz. Sunday's collection. I went to my parents' house before dawn. The neighborhood was silent. Fog hung low over the lawns. My key still worked. Inside, the house was cold. I heard voices from the dining room. My father, my mother, and someone else. A man, smooth voice, polite, almost gentle. "You were given time," he said. "Time has a cost." My mother whispered, "He doesn't know anything. He knows enough to become inconvenient." I stepped into the doorway. 3 heads turned. My parents sat at the table in their robes, pale and small. At the empty chair sat a man I had never seen before. Late 50s, gray suit, clean hands, a face so ordinary it felt designed to be forgotten. In front of him was the 5th plate. He was eating slowly, not hungrily, ceremonially. He looked at me and smiled. "Adam." My father stood. "Go upstairs." I almost laughed. I was 31 years old, but his voice made me 8 again. The man placed his fork down. "No, let him stay. He was always part of the arrangement." My mother began to cry silently. I looked at her. "What arrangement?" The man wiped his mouth. "Your father's business failed when you were a child. Bad debts. Worse people. I offered protection. Money. Clean records. A quiet solution." My father's face collapsed inward. "In exchange for what?" I asked. "Access," the man said. One word. Simple. Horrible. Names. Documents. Accounts. A house to use when needed. A family respectable enough to hide behind. My stomach turned. The plate. The envelopes. The years of silence. "You've been blackmailing them." He tilted his head. "Blackmail is crude. I prefer continuity." Then Mara stepped in from the kitchen, wearing my coat. I took a step back. She smiled at me like we were meeting for coffee. "Adam," she said softly, "please don't make this harder." The man looked amused. "My daughter has grown fond of you." Daughter. The word clarified everything and ruined it. Mara was not comfort. She was inheritance. A second-generation predator. raised inside the family business of collecting people. You used a dating app, I said. We used many things, she replied. Your app, your old posts, your email leaks, your divorce records, delivery metadata, voice samples, your mother's messages, your sister's cloud backups. She said it gently, like she was explaining weather. My phone buzzed. A message from my own number appeared on the screen. Asterisk, I'm sorry. I need space. Don't contact me, asterisk. Below it were scheduled recipients. My boss, my sister, my landlord, my few friends. They were preparing to erase me socially before anything happened physically. A clean disappearance. An adult man under stress. Recently divorced. Unstable. Gone by choice. The man at the table lifted his glass. You see? No one needs violence when a believable story already exists. A floorboard creaked upstairs. Then another. Elise appeared behind me, holding her phone. Her face was white. I sent it, she said. Mara's eyes sharpened. Elise swallowed. I sent everything. The man stood slowly. What did you send? Photos. The envelopes. The voice notes. The messages. The old records. To the police. To a journalist. To myself. To everyone. For the first time, Mara looked afraid. Not much, but enough. Sirens rose in the distance. Soft at first. Then closer. The man looked at my father. You disappoint me. My father did not move. Maybe he had been afraid for too long. Maybe he was tired. Maybe shame had finally become heavier than fear. He picked up the empty chair beside him and jammed it against the dining room door when Mara tried to run. Not violently, not heroically, just firmly, like closing a chapter. The police arrived in rain and blue light. The house filled with footsteps, radios, clipped voices. Mara did not scream. Her father did not fight. People like that rarely do when watched by authority. They prefer rooms where truth is negotiable. As officers led Mara past me, she leaned close enough for me to smell my own rain-soaked coat on her. You like being known, she whispered. I did not answer, because she was right, and because being right did not make her human. The investigation took months. The man's name was Victor Hale, though that was only one of several. He ran a network built on debt, identity fraud, coercion, and emotional leverage. Families, widows, students, small business owners, people with secrets, people with shame. He didn't collect money first. He collected access, passwords, keys, voice samples, family rituals, routine. The extra plate had never been superstition. It was compliance, a weekly proof of obedience, a signal that the house was still available. That fear still had a seat. My family had made the deal before I was old enough to understand it, then spent decades pretending silence could protect me from the cost. But silence protects the person who owns the secret, not the people trapped inside it. My parents sold the house after the trial. I helped my mother pack the dining room. When we reached the cabinet with the white plates, she asked if I wanted them. I said no, too quickly. She nodded like she understood. For once, neither of us apologized. I still live in the city. Different apartment. Better locks. Fewer apps. No dating profiles. I keep my phone camera covered. I delete old accounts when I find them. I check metadata before I send photos. I do not answer unknown numbers after midnight. Sometimes on rainy Sundays, I pass cafes where people sit by windows in soft yellow light, leaning toward each other as if trust is easy. I envy them, a little. Then I keep walking. At night, the refrigerator hums. The pipes click. Music comes faintly through the wall. Soft jazz. Always distant. Always almost familiar. And sometimes, when I sit down to eat alone, I look at the empty chair across from me. I know no one is there. I know what happened was human. Documents. Threats. Money. Phones. Data. Fear. No ghosts, no curses, just people who learned that a life can be entered through its unlocked habits. Still, I never set an extra plate, not even by accident. because I understand now that obsession does not always break down the door. Sometimes it waits for an invitation. Sometimes it calls it self-protection. Sometimes it studies your hunger so carefully that it knows exactly what kind of kindness will make you open. Trust is not the absence of fear. Trust is the presence of boundaries. And privacy is not a wall against love. It is the proof that love has not become ownership. My family thought the guest was collecting debts. They were wrong. He was collecting permission, one Sunday at a time. Story 5. The first time I heard my mother's voice in the wall, rain was tapping the kitchen window. Soft, patient, like fingers asking to be let in. My father was asleep upstairs, or pretending to be. The house made old sounds around me. Pipes ticking, refrigerator humming, wind pressing against the glass. Somewhere far away, a siren cried and disappeared into the wet dark. I stood barefoot on the kitchen tiles with a glass of water in my hand. Then the wall whispered my name. Eli. I dropped the glass. It broke quietly, not like in movies. Just a small, sharp collapse. I stared at the wall beside the pantry. My mother's voice came again. Don't tell him. My mother had been missing for 11 days. My father said she left. He said grief made people cruel. He said she had always been fragile. He said I was old enough to understand that some women disappeared before their bodies did. That was how he talked, calmly, like every wound was a lesson. After Mom vanished, he stopped playing music in the house. No soft jazz from the old radio. No humming while she cooked. No late-night phone calls from her sister in the city. Only rain. Only appliances. Only his footsteps moving above me at night. Slow. Measured. Listening. I was 17, but grief made me feel younger. Smaller. Like the house had swallowed me, and I was still living inside its throat. A week before she disappeared, Mom had told me, if anything happens, trust what you hear when you're alone. I thought she meant my instincts. I wanted to believe that. The next morning, I told my father I heard her. He sat across from me at breakfast, cutting toast into perfect squares. His suit was dark. His hair was wet from the shower. He smelled like cedar soap and coffee. Eli, he said, your mind is trying to give you comfort. It wasn't in my head. He looked sad in a practiced way. You miss her. So do you. His knife stopped. Only for a second. Then it moved again. Of course. I told myself it made sense. People sounded strange when they were grieving. Even fathers. Especially fathers. That afternoon, a woman named Mara came to the house. She said she was a family liaison from the police department. Soft voice. Gray coat. Kind eyes that did not stay still. She brought paperwork, her own tea bags, and the kind of attention that felt like warmth. You don't have to perform strength for me, she said while my father took a call in the other room. No adult had said anything that gentle to me since Mom vanished. So I trusted her a little. That was my first mistake. Mara asked about my sleep, my appetite, my phone, my friends, whether my mother had any enemies. Then she said, "Did she ever call you little bird?" I froze. Only Mom called me that. Never in public. Never written down. How do you know that? Mara's expression softened. Your father mentioned it. I wanted to believe it. Maybe he had. Maybe I was overthinking. That night, the voice came again. Rain crawled down the window. My phone buzzed on the mattress beside me. Unknown number. No message. Just one missed call. Then the wall behind my bed whispered. Drawer. Study. Left side. False bottom. I stopped breathing. Mom. Static answered. Then her voice thinner now. Not much time. The next day, while my father was at work, I went into his study. The room smelled like leather, dust, and the cologne he used when important people visited. The blinds were closed. His computer monitor slept on the desk, blue light pulsing like a heartbeat. Left drawer. Locked. I found the key taped beneath the third shelf, exactly where my mother used to hide birthday money. Inside the drawer were tax folders, fountain pens, and a wooden tray. The bottom lifted. Beneath it was a bundle of letters tied with black thread. My mother's handwriting. but not to my father. To me. The first line said, "If you are reading this, he has started rewriting me." My hands shook so hard the paper whispered. The letters described bank accounts I had never heard of, fake names, storage units, a private clinic outside the city, men who came to dinner when I was little and never looked at me directly. And one sentence I read 3 times. "Your father's family does not lose people. They replace them, asterisk asterisk." A floorboard creaked upstairs. I shoved everything back. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A voice note. I pressed play. My mother's voice whispered, "He knows." Then I heard my father downstairs. "Eli?" "Calm. Too calm." I closed the drawer. "In here," I said. He stood in the doorway, rain behind him in the window, face unreadable. "You shouldn't be in this room." I was looking for tape. He smiled faintly. "In a locked drawer? There are moments when childhood ends without ceremony. No birthday, no graduation, just a locked room. A lie. A parent standing between you and the door." Mara came again the next day. This time, she wore perfume like cold flowers. She sat beside me on the porch while fog pressed against the street and cars hissed over wet asphalt. "Your father worries about you," she said. "He should." She looked at me carefully. "Eli, grief can make patterns where there are none." I found letters. Her face did not change. "What kind?" "My mother's." "And did the wall tell you where to look?" I turned toward her. The porch light hummed. She already knew. Something inside me went cold. That night, I searched Mara's name. No family liaison. No police profile. No department email. Her photo existed online, but only in fragments. A dead social media page. A counseling website with broken links. A dating profile under another name. Then another. Different hair. Same eyes. Same stillness. My laptop fan word. Rain tapped the glass. A file downloaded from an anonymous email. Subject line, "For little bird." Inside were audio clips. My mother speaking. Not messages. Recordings. Hundreds of them. Some sounded recent. Some old. Some were labeled with dates from my childhood. Then I found the folder marked. Training set. My stomach turned. AI voice models. Clone samples. Scripts. Prompts. Someone had been using my mother's voice. Someone had put her inside the walls. I wanted it to be her. That was the cruelest part. I wanted the impossible because the possible was worse. A voice came from the wall behind me. "Eli." I did not answer. "Little bird." "No," I whispered. The wall buzzed softly. A speaker, hidden behind plaster. Not a ghost. A system. Then the voice changed. Still my mother's, but sharper. "Run." The bedroom door opened. My father stood there. His eyes moved from my laptop to the wall, then back to me. "I told them you were clever," he said. My blood went cold. "Them?" He sighed like I had disappointed him. "Your mother became unstable. She found things she misunderstood." "Where is she?" He stepped into the room. Behind him, Mara appeared in the hallway. No gray coat now. No soft eyes. Just a woman watching a project reach its final stage. "She tried to take you away," my father said. "From your family. From protection." "Protection from what?" "From the world that eats weak people." Mara spoke gently. "Your mother wanted to destroy the structure that kept you safe." The word structure made my skin crawl. I backed toward the window. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. But this time, the message was not from them. It was from Mom's sister. "Police are outside. Keep them talking, asterisk asterisk." I looked at my father. Then Mara. The rain grew louder. Distant sirens began to rise. My mother had planned for this. The real recordings. The letters. The anonymous email. The hidden speakers. All of it had been a trail. Not madness. Evidence. Mara noticed my face change. She reached for her phone. I threw my laptop at the wall speaker. The sound cracked into static. My father lunged. I ran. Down the hallway. Past framed family photos where everyone looked too still. Down the stairs. my hand sliding on the polished rail. The house erupted with sound. Footsteps. Mara shouting. My father saying my name like a command. At the front door, the lock would not turn. Of course, he had changed it. Behind me, my mother's voice came from another wall. Kitchen window. I ran toward it. Maybe it was a recording. Maybe it was triggered by motion. Maybe it was my aunt controlling it from outside. I did not care. For once, I listened. I threw a chair through the kitchen window. Cold rain burst into the room. Glass scattered across the sink. Red and blue lights flashed beyond the hedges. I climbed out as officers ran toward me through the storm. My father stopped in the kitchen doorway. Mara stood beside him. For 1 second, they looked like strangers wearing my life. Then the police entered the house. The investigation lasted months. They found my mother alive in a private facility under a false name, sedated and hidden behind paperwork my father's family had paid for. They found recordings, burner phones, fake profiles, forged emails, bank transfers, tracking devices, and files on people who had tried to leave the family before. Mara was not a counselor. She was a fixer. She specialized in grief, reputation, and identity. She made people seem unstable. She made disappearances look voluntary. She made voices say whatever the family needed them to say. My mother had discovered the system, so they erased her, then tried to teach me not to trust the only part of her they could not fully control. Her love. I live with my aunt now, in a small apartment above a closed cafe. At night, rain paints neon across the windows. The refrigerator hums. Music leaks through the walls. Sometimes a phone buzzes and my chest tightens before I see who it is. My mother is recovering. Slowly. Some days she remembers everything. Some days she looks at me and cries because she thinks I am still 10. I do not correct her quickly. I let her come back at her own speed. I still hate voices through walls. Even kind ones. Especially kind ones. Because I learned that love can be imitated. Concern can be engineered. A familiar voice can become a weapon in the hands of someone patient enough to study your grief. But I also learned this. Truth does not always arrive clean. Sometimes it comes through static, through plaster, through fear, through a mother's voice broken into pieces, still trying to guide her child home. And maybe trust is not believing every voice that calls your name. Maybe trust is learning which doors should stay locked, and which walls deserve to be broken. Story 6. The night before I turned 18, it rained so hard the whole city looked bruised. Neon from the corner pharmacy smeared across the kitchen windows. Red, blue, green, like emergency lights underwater. The refrigerator hummed behind me. The old clock ticked above the stove, and beneath the floorboards, my parents were whispering my name. Again and again. Mara. Then silence. Then my father's voice, low and careful. She has to go down tomorrow. My mother said something I couldn't hear. A floorboard creaked under my bare foot. The whispering stopped. I stood in the dark kitchen with my phone in my hand, cold coffee on the counter, rain tapping the glass like fingernails. The basement door was at the end of the hall. Locked. Always locked. In our family, every child knew the rule. No one entered the basement before their 18th birthday. No one asked why. When we were little, my cousins joked about it. Treasure, bodies, wine cellar, old money. But after they turned 18, they stopped joking. They changed. Not all at once. Quietly. Aunt Lena stopped laughing with her teeth showing. My cousin Peter deleted every social media account and moved without telling anyone his address. My older brother Daniel came back from his birthday pale and polite, like someone had rewritten him overnight. When I asked him what happened, he touched my shoulder. Softly, too softly. You'll understand when it's your turn. That was 6 years ago. Now it was my turn, and I was already breaking. 2 months before my birthday, my boyfriend, Caleb, left me in a cafe during a storm. Blue Hour Cafe, downtown, jazz playing too softly. Windows fogged white, my reflection floating over the street like a ghost. He said I was hard to reach. I wanted to laugh. I had spent my whole life trying to be reachable. To my parents, to teachers, to men who mistook silence for permission. After Caleb left, I sat there until closing, watching rain turn the sidewalks black. That was when Theo sat across from me. He asked, "Do you want me to pretend I don't see you crying?" I should have hated him for that. Instead, I almost smiled. He was calm, older than me, maybe 21. Dark sweater, gentle eyes, the kind of person who looked like he listened before speaking. "I don't know," I said. "That's fair." He didn't ask for my number. He didn't flirt. He just stayed until the barista stacked the chairs. That made him feel safe. Safety can be the first lie. Theo appeared again 3 days later on a dating app one barely used. His profile said, "Soft jazz, night walks, black coffee, no games." I matched with him because loneliness is not logical. He messaged first, "You always sit near windows." I stared at it. Then he sent another. "Sorry. Cafe observation. Not creepy, asterisk asterisk." I wanted to believe it. Maybe I was overthinking. I told myself it made sense. By the week of my birthday, Theo knew too much. He knew I walked home past the laundromat because the main road felt too exposed. He knew I slept with my phone under my pillow. He knew I hated lilies because my grandmother's funeral had been full of them. He knew my mother called me Mouse when she wanted me obedient. I never told him that. When I asked, he tilted his head during a video call. "You did," he said gently. "You forget what you say when you're tired." Behind him, I heard soft music, the same song from Blue Hour. A trumpet, slow and sad. "I'm not trying to scare you," he said, but he had already learned the shape of my fear. The basement door stood under the staircase, painted black, with a brass lock polished by years of adult hands. When I was 9, I pressed my ear to it and heard a humming sound. Not machinery, not voices, a low electric vibration. My mother found me there and slapped the door above my head so hard I cried. "Never," she said. Not angry, terrified. Now, the night before my birthday, the same hum rose through the hallway. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A voice note. I should not have opened it, but fear has curiosity inside it. I pressed play. At first, only rain. Then my mother's voice. "Mara needs to be prepared." My father answered. "No one is ever prepared." The recording ended. I looked toward the basement door. The voices had come from below, but the message had come from outside. Someone was listening. At breakfast, my parents acted normal. My mother sliced toast into triangles like I was still 5. My father read emails on his tablet, the screen reflecting in his glasses. Rain dragged shadows down the windows. "What happens tomorrow?" I asked. The knife stopped. My father looked up. "You become an adult." That's not an answer. It's the only one we can give. My mother said, "Some things protect you after they hurt you." I hated that sentence immediately. It sounded like every excuse adults used after choosing fear over truth. At school, my phone kept buzzing. Fake profiles followed me. Names I didn't know. Accounts with no posts. A message from an email address made of random numbers. They will tell you it is tradition. Ask what happened to Daniel, asterisk asterisk. My hands went numb. Daniel had not spoken to me in weeks. Not really. He replied to texts with thumbs up emojis and weather reports. I called him from the bathroom stall. Rain tapped the tiny window above me. A fluorescent light buzzed overhead. He answered on the 5th ring. "Mara, what happened in the basement?" Silence. Then a breath. "Where are you?" "School." "Are you alone?" My throat tightened. "Why?" "Because if someone is helping you ask questions, they are not helping you." "Theo?" Another silence. Longer. "Do not tell him anything else." My knees weakened. "You know him?" Daniel whispered. "Everyone has a Theo." Then the line cut. That night, I searched the house while my parents slept. The hall smelled like dust and raincoats. The appliances hummed in the kitchen. Somewhere outside, distant music thudded through apartment walls across the street. In my father's office, I found a locked drawer. The key was taped under his chair. Inside were folders. One for every child in the family. Daniel, Peter, Lena, Me. My folder was thick. Photos, school schedules, screenshots of posts I had deleted, printouts of emails, a transcript of a voice note I sent Caleb after our breakup. My stomach folded in on itself. At the back was a page titled, PR Ritual Stress Profile, Mara Ellis. Under it, primary vulnerability, abandonment. Likely attachment target, attentive male stranger. Trigger phrase, I see you. I sat on the floor until the room tilted. Theo had said that phrase the second week, during a voice note at 1:18 a.m. I see you, Mara. Even when they don't. Asterisk, asterisk. I had cried when he said it. Not because it was beautiful, because it worked. The basement ritual was not supernatural. It was research, control, inheritance, a family machine. I took photos of everything. My phone buzzed before I could leave. Theo, you found the drawer. I froze. Then another message. Good. You're ready now. Asterisk, asterisk. A floorboard creaked in the hallway. Not my parents' room. Closer. I turned off the lamp. My breathing sounded too loud. Footsteps moved past the office door. Slow. Measured. Then stopped. A whisper came through the wood. Mara. It was my mother. But it was not my mother. The tone was wrong. Flat. Recorded. My phone lit again. A new voice note. My mother's voice said, "Come downstairs, mouse." I pressed my fist against my mouth. AI. A clone voice. Built from years of videos, birthday posts, family recordings. The footsteps moved away. Then the basement door clicked. Unlocked. I ran to Daniel's old room and climbed out the window onto the porch roof. Rain hit my face, cold and sharp. The street below was empty except for neon reflections and parked cars. My phone buzzed again. Careful. You always slip when you panic. Asterisk, asterisk. I looked across the street. In a dark sedan under the pharmacy sign, a screen glowed. Someone was inside, watching. I ran, barefoot, down the wet metal stairs, across the alley, past trash bins and the laundromat vents breathing warm air into the fog. My feet slapped the sidewalk. A siren wailed somewhere far away. I called Daniel again. He answered instantly. "Go to Blue Hour," he said. "Stay where people can see you. I'm calling the police. Theo is watching me." "No," Daniel said. "Theo is a mask." At Blue Hour, the windows were fogged. Inside, students hunched over laptops. Soft jazz played. Cups clicked. A woman laughed too loudly near the counter. Normal life. Cruel in its normalness. I sat by the window and watched every reflection. Then Theo appeared behind me in the glass. He sat across from me like the first night. Gentle eyes. Dark sweater. No hurry. "Mara," he said. "You look cold." I did not move. "You're not Theo." He smiled faintly. "No, but you needed Theo." "What are you?" "Someone who understands systems." His voice was quiet, educated, almost tender. "My family hired you. Your family built the ritual. I modernized it." The cafe noise blurred. "What ritual?" He leaned back. "Before adulthood, every family member is tested. Not for courage, for compliance, for secrecy, for vulnerability. We identify what can control them before the world does. That's abuse. That's one word. It's the correct word." His eyes softened, as if he pitied me. "You think privacy makes you safe. It doesn't. Patterns are louder than secrets. Your pauses, your routes, your late-night searches, your favorite sad songs. People give themselves away constantly." My phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "Police are 3 minutes away. Keep him talking, asterisk, asterisk." Theo glanced at my phone. "You always look down when you're afraid." My chest tightened. "Why me?" "Because you were honest online. Grief makes people beautifully searchable." I hated him then. Not loudly. Deeply. He continued. "Your parents thought I was preparing you. I thought I was freeing you. By stalking me? By showing you what love looks like when it has no blind spots." The door opened. Cold rain air swept through the cafe. Two officers stepped inside. Theo noticed them in the window reflection. For the first time, his face changed. Not fear, irritation, like reality had interrupted a private experiment. He reached across the table and touched my wrist. Lightly, possessively. I pulled away. That was the moment he lost me. Not when I found the folder. Not when I heard my mother's fake voice. When I understood that he believed access was intimacy. The police arrested him outside, under the humming pharmacy sign. His real name was Adrian Cole, 26, cybersecurity contractor, paid by my family through shell accounts. But he had gone beyond the assignment. There were others, other girls, other rituals, fake profiles, burner phones, voice clones, location tracking, metadata scraping, hidden cameras, emotional scripts. He had constructed entire people to enter broken places in us. Theo was one. There were many. My parents were arrested later that night. My mother kept saying, "We thought it would protect her." Daniel stood beside me at the curb, rain dripping from his hair. He looked older than 24. Older than anyone should. "They did it to me too," he said. I wanted to ask why he never told me. Then I remembered the folder. The basement did not just teach fear. It taught silence. When police opened the basement, there were no chains. No blood. No monster in the dark. Only servers. Cameras. Old family files. A table. 2 chairs. A room built for confession. A room built to make children believe adulthood meant surrendering the private self. My 18th birthday began at 12 a.m. in the back of a police station, wrapped in a gray blanket, drinking coffee that tasted like metal. No cake, no candles, no ritual, just fluorescent lights. A detective's pen scratching paper, Daniel's hand shaking around a paper cup, and rain tapping the windows like the world had not finished speaking. Months later, I still wake to small sounds. The refrigerator hum, a phone vibration, footsteps in the hall, music through walls. Sometimes I catch my reflection in dark glass and wonder how much of me is still mine. I changed my number, deleted my accounts, covered my cameras, started therapy, learned that healing is not becoming untouched. It is becoming unavailable to the people who mistake your wounds for doors. I used to think trust meant letting someone know everything. Now I think trust begins where observation ends. Love does not study you like evidence. Family does not prepare you for harm by becoming the harm first. And privacy is not secrecy. It is breath. It is the quiet room inside you that no one gets to enter just because they learned where the door is. Story 7. The clock arrived the week after my father disappeared. Not died, disappeared. People kept correcting me. Police officers, relatives, neighbors with wet umbrellas and careful voices. Missing, they said, as if language could make absence less violent. He had gone out during a rainstorm to buy cigarettes, though he had quit smoking 12 years earlier. His phone was found 3 blocks away near the tram station, face down in gutter water, still buzzing with missed calls from me. No wallet, no coat, no father. I was 28, newly separated from a man who used silence like punishment, living again in my childhood house because grief has a way of dragging you back to the first place that taught you fear. My mother had been dead for 5 years. My younger brother, Theo, lived across the city and answered texts with thumbs-up emojis because he did not know what else to do. So I was alone when the movers brought the clock. Rain tapped against the porch roof. The street lights glowed through fog. The men carried it wrapped in canvas, tall and dark and heavy, its wooden body smelling of damp oak and old rooms. "Where do you want it?" one asked. I almost said nowhere. Instead, I pointed to the living room wall. The clock stood there like a witness. It was a grandfather clock, but wrong. No numbers, no hour hand, no minute hand, only a black circular face with a narrow brass window at the center. Inside the window, small white tiles shifted with mechanical clicks. 06:00:00. 6 hours. Not time. A countdown. The movers left before I could ask who had sent it. On the tag tied to the clock key, someone had written, returned to the family. The house settled around me. The refrigerator hummed in the kitchen. Rain crawled down the windows. Somewhere upstairs, the floor creaked, though no one was there. The clock clicked once. 05:59:59. I should have called the police. Instead, I stood there and listened to it count down the silence. I wanted to believe it was some antique mechanism, some inheritance mix-up, a strange thing my father had bought and forgotten to mention. My father loved old objects, pocket watches, war letters, rusted keys with no locks. He used to say everything kept a little memory if people touched it long enough. So I told myself it made sense. At midnight, the countdown reached 0. The clock did not chime. It exhaled, a low wooden sound deep inside its body. Then my phone buzzed. Theo. I answered before the first ring finished. For 3 seconds, there was only rain, then breathing. Fast. Shallow. Theo. A car horn blared somewhere on his end. He whispered, "Mira, don't open the clock." Then the line cut. By morning, Theo was missing too. His apartment door was unlocked. Coffee still warm on the counter. Laptop open. Music playing softly through a cheap speaker. A jazz song my mother used to play on Sundays. No struggle. No note. Just his phone on the floor, cracked across the screen. The police asked about enemies. Debt. Drugs. Mental health. I said no so many times the word became useless. Detective Hale was the only one who did not look at me like grief had made me unreliable. She was narrow-faced, calm, with gray eyes that missed very little. "Tell me about the clock," she said. We were standing in my living room. Rain blurred the windows. Neon from the pharmacy sign across the street flashed red over the glass, then vanished, then returned. The clock had reset. 72:00:00. 72 hours. 3 days. Detective Hale photographed it. Who delivered it? I don't know. No receipt. No. Family history? I looked at the clock. My father never mentioned it. Behind us, the old refrigerator clicked on. The sudden hum made both of us turn. Hale studied me. "Do you have somewhere else to stay?" I thought of my empty apartment across the city. My ex, Daniel, still sending long emails about closure. The cafe below my building where soft jazz leaked through the floorboards. The cold streets. The feeling of being watched by my own reflection in dark windows. "No," I said. She gave me her card. "Then lock your doors. And don't touch the mechanism." That night, I downloaded a dating app again. Not because I wanted love. Because loneliness can become a room with no oxygen. Because Daniel had taught me to distrust my own needs, then left me ashamed of having them. Because my father and brother were gone, and the house sounded too large. His name was Elias. He matched with me at 1:13 a.m., while rain tapped the windows and the clock counted backward in the living room. His first message said, "Old houses are louder when you're alone." I stared at the screen. My profile did not mention the house. I should have blocked him. Instead, I wrote, "That sounds like something from a bad novel." He replied, "Most true things do." We met the next morning at a cafe near the river. The city was gray and wet. Cars hissed along the streets. People moved under umbrellas like dark flowers. Inside, the cafe smelled of coffee, cinnamon, and damp wool. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers. Elias had kind hands. That was the first thing I noticed. Long fingers, clean nails, no wedding ring. He listened without trying to solve me. When I told him about my father, his face softened. When I told him about Theo, he did not look away. When I mentioned the clock, he went very still. "You inherited a countdown clock?" he asked. "I didn't inherit it. It arrived." "From whom?" "I don't know." He stirred his coffee once. "My grandmother used to talk about clocks like that." My chest tightened. What did she say? That they don't measure time. They collect it. I almost laughed. He smiled faintly. "I know how it sounds." "No, it's just impossible?" "Yes. Sometimes impossible is only a word for something designed to stay hidden." I wanted to believe he was strange but safe. That became the second mistake. Elias said he worked in archival restoration. Old records, estate documents, forgotten legal files. He offered to help trace the clock. I said yes too quickly. He noticed. "You don't have to trust me," he said. That sentence made me trust him more. At home, the clock read 58:12:09. Each click felt surgical, precise, patient. Elias came over that evening with gloves, a flashlight, and a bottle of red wine he never opened. He moved through the house like he had been there before, straight to the kitchen drawer for scissors, straight to the hallway closet for the fuse box, straight to the living room window where my mother used to stand when waiting for my father to come home. "You know this layout?" I asked. Old houses repeat themselves. Maybe they did. Maybe I was overthinking. He examined the clock but did not open it. "Beautiful," he said. "Is that the word? Beauty and threat are cousins." Inside the brass window, the tiles shifted. 57:59:59. Elias looked at me. "Do you know the name Ashbury House?" I shook my head. He showed me an article on his phone. A grainy photograph of a large estate outside the city, taken in 1912. Tall windows, iron gates, bare trees. The headline read, "Ashbury House investigated after labor debt scandal." The article was old, digitized badly, some words blurred. Elias summarized softly. Poor families went there for loans, medical care, shelter. In exchange, they signed contracts measured in years. Not money, time. 5 years of labor, 10 years of service. Children apprenticed before they were old enough to understand consent. That's slavery. That's one word for it. What does that have to do with us? He zoomed in on the article. There, in a list of names, was my great-grandfather, Samuel Venn, my mother's maiden name. Elias lowered his voice. "Your ancestor worked there." "No. He may have stolen something when the house shut down." The clock clicked between us, a slow mechanical heartbeat. I told myself the article could be fake. People fake everything now. Scramshots, records, voices, grief. But Elias sent me the archive link, and the metadata looked real. The newspaper scan came from a university collection. The family name matched. That night, after he left, an email arrived from my father's account. Subject line, "The clock must be paid back." My hands went numb. The body contained one audio file. I clicked it. Static. Rain. Then my father's voice. "Mira, if you're hearing this, the time is almost gone." I stopped breathing. His voice was perfect. Too perfect. Soft in the places memory loved. "I tried to keep you and Theo out of it. Your great-grandfather stole from Ashbury House. They never stopped looking for what was owed." The file ended. I played it again. Then a third time. Behind the voice, faintly, was music. Soft jazz. Not from my house. From the cafe where I had met Elias. I checked the file metadata. Most fields were stripped. One device name remained. EV_archive_7. Elias Venn? No. He had never told me his last name. My phone buzzed. A message from him. "Don't listen to anything sent after midnight. Fear edits sound, ****. I stared at the screen. He knew. Not guessed. Knew. The clock kept counting down. 43:18:02. I began searching. My father's old files. The attic. The crawl space under the stairs where dust clung to my sleeves and the house breathed cold air into my face. At 3:20 a.m., with rain ticking against the roof, I found a metal box behind loose boards. Inside were letters, photographs, a black ledger with cracked leather covers, and a note in my father's handwriting. "If the clock returns, Hale can be trusted. No one else. ***. Detective Hale." My pulse thudded in my ears. The ledger belonged to Ashbury House. Names, dates, payments, not money, years. Marion Cole, 12 years domestic service. Thomas Reed, 7 years field labor. Infant pledged, 18 years guardianship. My stomach turned. Near the back, one page had been torn halfway down. At the top, clock ledger transfer, Samuel Venn. Below it, removed without settlement. Balance inherited by bloodline, asterisk asterisk. Realistic explanations came slowly. Not ghosts, not curses. Contracts, institutions, families with money. Records buried, then preserved by descendants who thought cruelty was tradition. I photographed everything and sent it to Hale. Then I searched Elias. No Elias in archival restoration. No employment history. His dating profile had been created 11 days earlier. His photos had no older comments. One image, supposedly taken in Prague, had metadata from a motel near my house. I kept digging. Elias Rowe. Elias Vale. Elias Venn. Finally, one matched. Elias Ashbury, private investigator, consultant for a foundation called the Ashbury Trust, a heritage preservation nonprofit that owned old properties, sealed archives, and, according to one forum, ruined people who asked the wrong questions. I found a photo from a donor event. Elias in a dark suit, standing beside a woman with silver hair and a calm, intelligent face. Caption: Helena Ashbury, chair of the Ashbury Trust. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered because fear had already answered for me. A woman spoke. Miss Venn. Her voice was warm, controlled, like a therapist who knew the diagnosis before the patient sat down. Who is this? You have something that belongs to my family. The clock, the ledger. Rain tapped the window. The refrigerator hummed. The house seemed to lean in. My father and brother are missing, I said. They are safe if you remain practical. My knees weakened. What did you do? We recovered collateral. The word entered the room like poison. Collateral. Not people. Not family. A category. You can end this, she said. Bring the ledger to Ashbury House before the clock reaches 0. I looked at the countdown. 27:04:11. And if I don't? A pause. Not threatening. Worse. Patient. Time has always been paid by someone. The call ended. I drove to the police station through fog so thick the streetlights looked drowned. Hale listened to the recording. She read my father's note. She photographed the ledger. Then she called 2 other detectives into the room. The investigation changed shape. Not missing persons anymore. Extortion. Kidnapping. Fraud. Digital impersonation. Coercive surveillance. Hale told me they had received complaints about the Ashbury Trust before. Families pressured over old debts. Heirs stalked after inheritances. Elderly relatives manipulated into signing documents. A few disappearances that never became cases because the victims were labeled unstable. They use mythology, Hale said. Curses. Family shame. Old agreements. It makes people hide instead of report. The clock, likely modified, will confirm. I thought of the wooden body, the brass window, the perfect countdown. Not magic. Engineering. A stage prop with a century of blood behind it. Hale asked if I would help them set a trap. I said yes before fear could become wisdom. At 11:40 p.m., I returned to the house with the ledger. Police waited nearby. The clock read 00:19:32. The living room was dark except for streetlight through rain. Neon reflected in the window glass, red and blue over my face. The clock clicked. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere upstairs, a floorboard creaked. Then came a knock. Not at the front door. At the back. I opened it with Hale listening through the wire taped under my shirt. Elias stood in the rain. No umbrella. Hair wet. Face calm. You shouldn't have gone to police, he said. You shouldn't have lied. I told you pieces of the truth. That's still control. His expression softened. You're grieving. You want a villain because randomness is unbearable. You took my family. I protected leverage. I laughed once. It sounded broken. He looked almost hurt. I liked you, Mira. No, you studied me. Those are not opposites. Behind him, a car idled in the alley. Dark windows. Engine low. He stepped closer. You know what Daniel did to you? How he made you doubt yourself. I never did that. You knew about Daniel. You wrote about him. In a private support group. Nothing online is private. There it was. The true face beneath the gentle one. Not rage. Entitlement. He believed access was intelligence. That privacy was a weakness. That a wound became public property the moment it could be found. The clock clicked inside. 00:03:10. Elias looked past me. Where is the ledger? Where are they? Alive. Proof. He lifted his phone. A video appeared. My father sitting in a chair, tired but conscious. Theo beside him, angry and scared. No visible injuries. A plain room. White walls. A humming fluorescent light. My throat closed. Bring the ledger, Elias said. The clock reaches 0 and instructions go out. You do not want instructions going out. The countdown entered its final minute. Police moved too early. Or maybe Elias expected them. A shout from the alley. A car door slammed. Elias grabbed my wrist. Not hard enough to bruise. Hard enough to remind me he could. You don't understand what families owe, he said. No, I said. I understand what people steal and rename inheritance. His eyes changed. For the first time, the softness disappeared. Then Hale was there. Gun drawn. Voice steady. Let her go. Elias released me slowly. He did not run. People like him rarely run when the story can still be managed. I was retrieving stolen property, he said. Hale cuffed him. The clock reached 0 inside the house. This time it did chime. Not mystical. Not ancient. Electronic. A hidden speaker deep in the wooden case released a low tone. Police found the transmitter behind the pendulum. They found a cellular module, battery pack, camera, microphone, and remote countdown mechanism hidden beneath old brass fittings. They found my father and Theo in a rented storage property outside the city before dawn. Alive. Cold. Terrified. But alive. The Ashbury Trust offices were searched the next week. The news called it a historic extortion ring. A private heritage organization using stolen archives, identity theft, AI voice cloning, burner phones, fake dating profiles, and staged family curses to pressure descendants into surrendering heirlooms, land, documents, and money. The clock had not been counting down to death. It had been counting down to decisions already made by people who knew fear worked best with a deadline. My great-grandfather had stolen the ledger, yes, but not from innocence. He had taken evidence from a house where poverty was converted into years, where desperate people paid with their bodies, their labor, their children, their futures. Time had been used as payment because the powerful have always preferred debts that outlive the debtor. Months later, I moved out of the house. My father went to live with Theo. We speak more carefully now, more honestly. Trauma made us polite for too long. The clock stayed in evidence. Sometimes I still hear it, at night, in the gap between the refrigerator shutting off and the rain beginning again. A click, a number changing, a reminder that control does not always enter as violence. Sometimes it arrives wrapped in family history. Sometimes it uses your father's voice. Sometimes it has kind hands and knows how you take your coffee. I used to think the past was finished because the people who made it were dead. Now I know better. The past survives wherever no one questions what was inherited. A house, a name, a debt, a silence. Trust is not believing someone because they speak gently. Safety is not the absence of fear, and privacy is not a luxury. It is the line between being known and being owned. Some people will study your grief and call it intimacy. Some will learn your routines and call it care. Some will place a clock in your living room and tell you time is running out. But time does not belong to the people who frighten us. It belongs to the moment we stop paying them with our fear. Story 8. I went to the reunion because my mother said I was becoming a ghost. She didn't mean it cruelly. That was the problem with my family. They rarely did anything cruelly. They wrapped cruelty in concern. They folded it into casseroles and polite questions, and hands placed gently over your wrist when you said something they didn't want heard. I had come back home after a breakup that left me hollow in ways I couldn't explain. Not dramatic, not cinematic, Just 2 years of someone smiling while convincing me I was too sensitive, too suspicious, too hard to love. By the end, I apologized before I spoke. So when my mother said, "Come with us, Daniel. Be around people," I said yes. The reunion was held at my grandfather's old lake house, 2 hours outside the city. Rain followed us the whole drive, tapping the windshield in nervous little rhythms. The sky was low and gray. Trees leaned over the road like they were trying to listen. Inside the house, everything smelled like wet coats, roasted meat, lemon cleaner, and old wood. Adults filled the rooms with laughter that sounded rehearsed. Cousins I barely knew stood in corners looking at their phones. Somewhere, a jazz record played too softly beneath the hum of appliances and the clatter of plates. I felt like an intruder in my own bloodline. Then I met Nora. She was sitting on the back porch under the weak yellow light, smoking without really smoking, letting the cigarette burn between her fingers. I didn't recognize her, but she looked at me like she had been expecting me. "You're Daniel," she said. "Depends who's asking." She smiled. "Someone who hates reunions too." That made me laugh. A real laugh. Small but real. Nora said she was connected through my aunt's second marriage. Not family by blood. Family by paperwork. She had calm eyes and a voice that never pushed. When I told her I had recently moved back into my parents' house, she didn't make a sad face. She just said, "That's hard. Returning to a place that remembers an older version of you." I looked at her. Rain dripped from the porch roof. The lake beyond the trees was black and restless. "Yeah," I said. "Exactly." For the first time all day, I felt less alone. The video was in the basement. My cousin Lucas found an old camcorder in a storage closet and decided we should embarrass the adults by playing family tapes. We gathered around the television in the rec room while rain clicked against the small basement windows and the furnace hummed behind the wall. The footage was grainy. Christmas mornings, birthday cakes, my grandfather pretending not to cry at anniversaries. Then a summer picnic appeared on screen. I was maybe 6 years old in the video, running barefoot through grass with a red popsicle melting down my hand. Lucas was there too, younger and rounder. My mother sat on a blanket, laughing, and beside her was a girl I had never seen. She looked about 12, dark hair, yellow raincoat, a thin silver necklace. She waved at the camera, then leaned down and whispered something to little me. On the video, I smiled like she had just told me a secret. I felt something move in my chest. Not memory, the shape of memory. "Who is that?" I asked. The room went quiet. Not silent. Quiet. There is a difference. Silence is empty. Quiet is full of people deciding what not to say. My Aunt Diane reached for the remote. "Old neighbor," she said. I looked at her. "She's sitting with Mom." Lots of people came to those picnics. My mother appeared at the basement stairs. Her face had gone pale. "Turn that off," she said. Lucas laughed awkwardly. "Why?" Now, the tape cut to blue. The jazz upstairs kept playing. No one looked at me. That was the first real warning. Families do not panic over strangers. Later, in the kitchen, I asked my mother again. The dishwasher hummed. Rain tapped the windows. She rinsed a plate that was already clean. "Who was the girl in the yellow coat?" "I don't remember. You were sitting next to her. It was a long time ago." "What was her name?" My father entered the kitchen before she could answer. "Maya," he said. My mother froze. Then my father smiled. Too late. Too carefully. Maybe Maya, a neighbor's kid. But I had seen something in my mother's face when he said the name. Recognition. Fear. Grief. I wanted to believe them. I wanted the world to remain simple. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe my breakup had made me hungry for patterns because chaos felt worse. At 1:18 a.m., my phone buzzed. I was lying awake in the guest room, listening to floorboards creak above me and distant laughter fading downstairs. Blue light washed over my face as I picked up the phone. A message request from an old social media account with no profile photo. Username, maya.veil.archive. The message said, "They erased me. You're next. ****. I sat up. The room tightened around me. Rain ran down the window in silver lines. Somewhere in the house, an appliance clicked off, making the silence larger. Another message appeared. Don't ask them in groups. They answer better alone. Asterisk asterisk. Then a photo. A still from the camcorder video. The girl in the yellow raincoat. Maya. Her hand resting on my shoulder. My own little face turned up toward her with absolute trust. I typed, "Who are you?" The answer came instantly. "Your cousin." I stared at the word until it felt unsafe. Cousin. The next morning, every adult denied her more firmly. Not angrily. Worse. Gently. My Aunt Diane touched my cheek and said, "Sweetheart, grief makes people invent connections." My father said, "There's no Maya in this family." My mother said nothing. She sat at the breakfast table with her coffee cooling in front of her while the refrigerator hummed and rain blurred the windows behind her. When I showed them the message, my father didn't look surprised. He looked tired. "That's spam," he said. "With a family video, people can fake anything now." My aunt nodded. "AI, deep fakes, stolen accounts. You know how the internet is." They were not wrong. That made it worse. Nora found me outside by the lake. Fog had settled low over the water. The trees looked half erased. "You saw her too," she said. I turned. "You know about Maya?" Nora looked toward the house. "I know what it feels like when adults decide reality by committee." I almost told her everything then. The message, the photo, the way my mother's hands shook. Instead, I asked, "Who are you really?" She smiled sadly. "Someone who kept a record." That should have scared me, but she said it like a rescue. Over the next 2 days, the messages continued. Not all at once. Slowly, carefully, like someone feeding a starving animal from their palm. Maya's account sent me names, dates, deleted family photos, screenshots of old birthday posts where comments had been scrubbed. A school newsletter from 15 years ago listing Maya Vale as winner of a regional art contest. Then stranger things, a voicemail of my mother crying, a bank transfer from my grandfather's foundation, a therapy bill with my name on it from when I was 7. I had no memory of therapy, but there were receipts. There were appointment reminders. There was a note from a doctor. Child presents confusion around cousin's absence. Family requests non-directive memory reframing, asterisk asterisk. Memory reframing. That phrase made me cold. I sent it to Nora. She replied, "They didn't just hide her. They taught you how to forget, asterisk asterisk." At night, the lake house became a different building. The adults went to bed early. The cousins whispered in rooms. Rain ticked against the roof. The old refrigerator downstairs hummed like an anxious machine. My phone buzzed under my pillow. "Ask your mother about the red basement door." There was a red door in the old family house before it was renovated. I remembered that suddenly. Not fully. A flash. A red door. Maya's hand around mine. Her voice saying, "If they ask, we were never here." The memory vanished as quickly as it came. I felt sick. I told myself it made sense. Childhood memories are unreliable. Families keep secrets. Adults lie to protect children. But protection was beginning to look exactly like control. On the third evening, Nora invited me to meet her at a cafe in town. It was narrow and warm, with fogged windows and a blue neon sign buzzing over the counter. Rain hammered the street outside. Cars passed slowly, their headlights stretching across the glass. Nora slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed screenshots. Family group chats, emails, a shared cloud drive titled Continuity Management. My last name on every page. "We call it erasure," Nora said. "They call it preservation." "What is this?" "Your family made a system. When someone threatened the family story, they removed them. Photos, records, accounts, names. They pressured everyone to stop speaking about them. Paid therapists, paid lawyers, paid reputation firms. If children remembered, they were told they dreamed it." My throat tightened. Maya threatened them? She found something. What? Nora watched me carefully. Behind her, jazz played softly from a speaker. That your grandfather's foundation wasn't just charity. My phone buzzed. A new message from Maya. Don't trust Nora. I looked up. Nora's expression did not change. What is it? She asked. I turned the phone face down. Nothing. For the first time, I saw irritation cross her face. Tiny, controlled, then gone. That night, Maya sent a voice note. Static first, then a girl's voice, older than the video, closer to my age. Danny, she whispered. Nobody called me Danny anymore. Only one person had. A girl in a yellow raincoat. I tried to tell you. They made you forget me. But she wants what they have. She doesn't want to save you. The audio ended. I played it 6 times. Then I checked the file metadata. Created 2 hours earlier. Device name, Nora MacBook. The room seemed to tilt. I could hear my own breathing. The radiator hissed. A floorboard creaked in the hallway outside my door. My phone buzzed again. From Nora this time. You found the metadata. Good. I needed to know you could still think clearly. Asterisk asterisk. I did not move. Another message. Come downstairs. Alone. Asterisk asterisk. I went because fear sometimes looks like obedience. Nora was in the rec room, standing by the old television. The camcorder sat on the table beside her. The basement smelled of dust, damp carpet, and electrical heat. You're not Maya, I said. No. Is she alive? Nora tilted her head. That depends on what you mean by alive. Don't do that. She smiled faintly. Good. Anger suits you better than confusion. The television flickered on. A new video played. Not the picnic. A hidden camera recording from years ago. My grandfather in his study. My father younger. My Aunt Diane crying. Maya standing in the doorway, shaking but upright. You can't erase people, she said on the tape. My grandfather's voice was calm. We are not erasing anyone. We are protecting the family from a child who does not understand consequence. Maya held up a drive. If this goes public, everyone knows. Then the video cut. My mouth had gone dry. What did she find? Nora stepped closer. That the foundation placed children with families off the books. Quiet adoptions. Paid silence. Missing paperwork. Your family called it mercy. I thought of Maya's name being removed from rooms. From photos. From me. Where is she? Nora looked almost tender. Maya ran. Your family couldn't find her. But they ruined her documents, her accounts, her education records. She became difficult to prove, difficult to hire, difficult to house. That is how you erase someone now. Not with fire, with databases. Then why pretend to be her? Because you wouldn't listen to me. Who are you? Her eyes softened. I was one of the children moved through that system. For a second, I felt pity. Then she said, Maya found me. Years ago. She promised she would expose them. Then she disappeared. Because of my family? Because of silence. Because people like you were taught to doubt your own memory. The old house creaked above us. Rain struck the basement windows. What do you want from me? I asked. Nora stepped close enough that I could smell coffee and cold air on her coat. The family trusts you. You're damaged, but still inside. That makes you useful. Useful. The word landed like a hand around my throat. I understood then. Nora had not comforted me because she cared. She had studied what kind of comfort I would accept. The cafe conversation. The timing. The messages. The old nickname. She had read my deleted dating profiles. Followed my social media. Used leaked passwords. Found childhood videos. Built Maya's voice from old tapes. Fed me truth through a fake mouth until I trusted the hand holding the knife. You stalked me, I said. I prepared you. You manipulated me. I woke you up. The difference mattered to me, not to her. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. Where are you? Then another message from Maya's account appeared on the television screen. Not my phone. The TV. Say it, Daniel. Tell them what they did. Asterisk asterisk. Nora had connected everything. My devices. The house Wi-Fi. The family cloud account. She had turned the reunion into a stage. Footsteps sounded upstairs. Voices. My father calling my name. Nora looked toward the ceiling. "Perfect," she whispered. That was when I noticed the burner phone on the table, still recording, and the small black camera beside the camcorder. She wanted a confrontation. Not justice. A collapse. A family destroying itself live, clipped and uploaded, edited into proof. Maybe the truth deserved daylight, but not through another lie wearing Maya's face. I grabbed the burner phone. Nora moved fast. Her hand closed around my wrist. Not hard enough to bruise. Hard enough to remind me she had expected resistance. "Daniel," she said softly, "don't protect them." "I'm not." "Then help me." Her voice became gentle again. The same warmth from the porch. The same careful understanding. "You know what it feels like to be erased. Your ex did it to you. Your family did it to you. I'm the only person here who never asked you to pretend." I almost believed her. That was the most frightening part. I wanted someone to turn my pain into a mission. I wanted my confusion to have an enemy. But healing that needs you useful is just another cage. I twisted away and ran upstairs. The house erupted. My father was in the hallway. My mother behind him. Aunt Diane at the kitchen door. All their faces pale under the yellow lights. "Nora isn't family," I said. "She's been using Maya's account." My mother looked at me, then past me. Nora came up the stairs slowly, hands visible, expression calm. "She's lying about that," I said, "but not about everything." No one spoke. The dishwasher hummed. Rain hit the windows. Jazz crackled from the living room record player, warped and soft. I held up the burner phone. "She recorded all of you. She hacked the reunion cloud. She built fake accounts. She knows about the foundation." My father closed his eyes. My aunt whispered, "Oh God." That was not denial. That was confirmation. I called the police before anyone could talk me out of it. Nora didn't run. She stood in the hallway like someone waiting for applause. "You'll thank me," she said. "No," I answered. But Maya might not hate that someone finally said her name. Her face broke slightly. Just slightly. Then the sirens came. Red and blue light slid over the rain-dark windows, over framed family photos, over faces that had spent years practicing innocence. Police found enough in Nora's bags to arrest her for cyberstalking, identity theft, illegal recordings, and extortion. Hard drives, voice models, fake profiles, tracking links, a folder with my name on it and notes about my habits. Responds to emotional validation. Fear of abandonment. Likely to comply if framed as moral courage. Reading that later hurt more than I expected. It is one thing to know you were vulnerable, another to see vulnerability cataloged. But Nora was not the only one exposed. The investigation into her devices reopened older records. The foundation, the off-book placements, the missing files, the payments, the families who had been told to forget children like they were clerical errors. My grandfather died before he could be charged. Conveniently, everyone said. My father testified. My aunt did not. My mother gave police a box of photographs she had kept hidden for years. In one of them, Maya stood beside me at the lake, both of us barefoot, both of us laughing. Her yellow raincoat was too big for her. My hand was in hers. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, were 4 words. Danny and Maya safe. Safe. A word families use like a blanket. A word that can smother. Months later, they found Maya. Alive. Not well. Not untouched by what had been done. But alive. She did not want to meet me right away. I understood. I had been part of the world that forgot her, even if I had been taught how. The first time she messaged me from her real account, there was no warning. No drama. Just one sentence. "I remember your red popsicle." I cried when I read it. Not loudly. Not beautifully. Just sitting alone in my apartment while rain tapped the window and the refrigerator hummed and distant music moved through the wall like someone else's dream. I still don't trust memory completely. I don't think I ever will. Some nights, I see my reflection in dark cafe glass and wonder how much of me was edited by other people before I knew I had a choice. What names were taken? What rooms were locked? What love became obedience because everyone called it protection? The family says it wants to heal now. Maybe that is true. Maybe that is another story arranged carefully around what hurts least to admit. I have learned that truth is not always clean. Sometimes the person who reveals it is dangerous. Sometimes the people who hid it also loved you. Sometimes being saved feels too much like being used. That is why boundaries matter. Not because we are cold, because the self is fragile where others have rewritten it. Trust is not letting someone walk through every door because they know where you ache. Privacy is not a family secret. Memory is not a thing anyone has the right to sacrifice for peace. An erasure does not always look like disappearance. Sometimes it looks like a smiling adult saying, "You must be mistaken." Sometimes it looks like a fake account telling the truth for the wrong reason. Sometimes it looks like your own mind closing a door because everyone you loved told it to. I keep Maya's photograph on my desk now, not as proof, as resistance, a reminder that every person deserves to remain in the story of their own life. And no family, no obsession, no love, no fear has the right to take that away. Story 9. I began the family tree because my history professor said roots mattered. He said everyone came from somewhere. I remember writing that sentence in my notebook while rain slid down the classroom windows in long silver threads. Outside, the campus lamps glowed through fog. Students hurried across the courtyard with their collars raised, their faces blue in the neon wash from the vending machines. Everyone came from somewhere. I underlined it twice. I had just moved back in with my mother after my parents' divorce. That was the polite version. The truth was that my father had vanished from our lives slowly before he ever left the house. First emotionally, then financially, then physically. He spoke to us through silence, through closed doors, through the soft violence of disappointment. My mother called it a separation. I called it learning how a home could become a place where every room listened. So when Professor Hale assigned us an ancestry project, I liked the idea. A chart, a structure, names in boxes, lines connecting one person to another. Proof that people belonged somewhere before everything broke. That night, I sat in my bedroom with my laptop open, rain tapping against the glass, the radiator clicking in the corner, the refrigerator humming faintly through the wall. My mother was downstairs, washing the same mug for too long. The house smelled like old wood and lemon soap. I typed my name into the genealogy website. Maya Ellery, then my mother, then my grandmother, then her mother. For a while, the records appeared normally. Birth certificate, marriage license, census scan, a grave in Oregon with a cracked stone and blurred flowers. Then everything stopped. Exactly 100 years ago, 1926. No birth certificates before that, no death records, no immigration documents, no graves. No school records, no property files. The Ellery family did not become blurry before 1926. It became nothing, a clean edge, like someone had cut us out of history with a blade. I told myself it was common. Bad archives, lost records, misspelled names. Maybe I was overthinking. Then I found the newspaper. It was a scanned page from 1926, yellowed and crooked. The headline was small, buried beneath an advertisement for winter coats. Local family disappears overnight. The names were listed underneath. Thomas Ellery, Rose Ellery, Caleb Ellery, June Ellery. My great-grandmother's name was June Ellery, but she would have been 3 years old in 1926. The June in the article was listed as 34. I stared at the screen until my eyes watered. Rain kept tapping. The house kept humming. Downstairs, my mother dropped something glass. It shattered. Then came silence. When I asked her about it, she went still. We were standing in the kitchen beneath a flickering light. The sink was full of dishwater. Her hands were wet, but she did not reach for a towel. "Where did you see that name?" she asked. "Online." "Which site? Why?" Her eyes moved to the dark window behind me. For a second, I thought she was looking at my reflection. Then I realized she was looking past it, into the yard. "Maya," she said quietly, Stop the project. I can't. It's graded. Then make something up. That was the first time I understood my mother was not hiding information. She was hiding fear. The next morning, an email appeared in my school inbox. No subject, no sender name, just one line. Your family tree has no roots because roots are how things find you. There was an attachment, a photo, me sitting at my desk the night before, taken from outside my bedroom window. I did not scream. Fear does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrives as temperature. The room went cold around me. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A voice note. I pressed play before I could think. For 3 seconds, there was only breathing. Then my mother's voice. Soft. Tired. Maya, delete what you found. I ran downstairs. My mother was at the stove making coffee. Same sweater. Same tight bun. Same face she wore when bills arrived. Did you send me a voice note? She turned. No. I played it. The cup slipped from her hand and broke against the tile. Coffee spread across the floor like dark rainwater. That isn't me, she whispered. But it was. Her exact voice. Her pauses. The little break in my name. AI could do that now. Everyone knew that. Voice samples. Old videos. Phone calls. A few seconds were enough if someone was patient. But knowing a trick exists does not make it less terrifying when it wears your mother's mouth. I wanted to go to the police. My mother said no. Not because she did not believe me, because she believed too much. That afternoon, a new student sat beside me in the library. His name was Eli. At least, that was what he said. He wore a gray coat still dark from rain and carried a stack of books with careful hands. He looked older than the rest of us, but not by much. His hair was black, his face narrow, his voice calm in a way that made quiet feel chosen instead of forced. You're in Hale's history seminar, he said. I looked up from my laptop. Yeah. Family tree assignment? I closed the tab too fast. He noticed. Of course he did. I'm sorry, he said. That sounded invasive. I should have moved. Instead, I stayed, because he smiled gently, and I was tired of being alone inside my fear. He told me his family history was strange too. Missing records, changed names, grandparents who refused to talk about childhood. He understood the emotional weight of blank spaces. Some families survive by forgetting, he said. Outside the library windows, rain blurred the streetlights. A bus sighed at the curb. Somewhere between the shelves, someone's phone buzzed and buzzed until it stopped. I asked him how he knew so much. He shrugged. I noticed patterns. That should have warned me. But after divorce, silence, and my mother's fear, his attention felt like shelter. I wanted to believe it. For 3 days, Eli helped me research. We sat in cafes with fogged windows and bitter coffee. We scrolled through old newspaper archives while soft jazz played overhead. He showed me databases I had never heard of. Regional records, court notices, digitized church bulletins, obituaries from towns that no longer existed. The names kept repeating. Ellery, Vale, Morrow, Sable, Hart. Different decades, different cities, sometimes different centuries. In 1826, an Ellery family disappeared from a mill town in Maine. In 1856, a Rose Ellery testified in a fraud case in Chicago. In 1896, Caleb Ellery was listed among witnesses after a fire at a private archive. In 1926, the family disappeared again. Every 70 or 100 years, the names came back, then vanished. The photographs were worse. Women with my mother's eyes, men with my grandfather's hands, children with my chin. Not impossible, not supernatural, just resemblance, inherited bone, inherited fear. But there was one photo that made me stop breathing. A 1926 newspaper clipping. A girl standing outside a train station in the rain. Her coat too large. Her expression guarded. Underneath, the caption read, June Ellery, last seen alive. She looked exactly like me. Eli leaned closer. His shoulder brushed mine. You see it too, he said. I closed the laptop. No. Maya. No. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. He is not helping you. I looked around the cafe. People hunched over laptops. A barista steamed milk. Neon from the pharmacy across the street trembled in the window. Nobody looked at me. Another message came. Ask him why he knows your grandmother's real name. I turned to Eli. What was my grandmother's name? He blinked once. June. No, her real name. A pause. Too small for anyone else to notice. Large enough for me. He said, "You told me." I didn't. He looked wounded. That was his gift. He could make suspicion feel like cruelty. You're scared, he said softly. That's understandable. But don't turn fear into isolation. That's what they want. They, the people your family ran from. Outside, a siren passed in the wet street. Blue light moved over his face. For a second, his reflection in the cafe window looked like a stranger wearing him. I left. That night, I searched Eli's name. Nothing. No social media. No school profile. No student email in the directory. The library checkout system had no record of him. But my phone had photos of us sitting together. In one, metadata showed the image had been created 2 weeks before I met him. I stared at the date until it stopped making sense. Then the photo changed. Not visually. The file name changed. From IMG_4021. 2. We found you through him. I threw the phone onto my bed like it was alive. The apartment silence pressed in. Rain tapped my window. The radiator clicked. A floorboard creaked in the hallway outside my room. My mother knocked once. Maya? Her voice was thin. I opened the door. She held an old metal box. I should have burned this, she said. Inside were passports, birth certificates, newspaper clippings, photos, different surnames, same faces. My grandmother as June Ellery, then June Vale, then June Hart. My mother as Elise Hart, then Nora Ellery, me as Maya Ellery. There was also a letter written in my grandmother's shaking handwriting. If she starts looking, run before the archive finds her. The archive? I asked. My mother sat on the edge of my bed. For the first time in my life, she looked older than her age. They're not ghosts, she said. They're people. A private network. Old money, old records, old crimes. They used to control documents before governments digitized everything. Land titles, birth records, debts, identities. If a person needed to disappear, they could make it happen. If a person needed to be ruined, they could make that happen too. Why us? Because our family helped expose them. When? A long time ago. That's not an answer. She looked down at the passports. In 1926, June Ellery wasn't a child. She was a witness. She stole ledgers from them. Names of judges, police chiefs, doctors, bankers. People who bought new identities. People who erased crimes. She testified. Then the case collapsed. What happened to her? She ran. With others. They reused names as signals. Ellery, Vale, Morrow, Sable, Hart. Not bloodlines. Warning flags. Safe names. I felt something inside me tilt. So our family tree is partly real, she said. Partly built. Every generation changed papers before the archive caught up. Caught up? My mother's face hardened with grief. My father disappeared after he tried to stop running. The house was silent. Then my laptop opened by itself. The screen lit the room pale blue. A video call request. Unknown user. My mother whispered, "Do not answer." The call answered itself. A man appeared on the screen. 50 maybe. Calm face. Silver hair. Dark suit. Behind him, shelves of files disappeared into shadow. "Hello, Maya," he said. His voice was gentle, not monstrous. That made it worse. My mother stood between me and the laptop. "Leave her alone." The man smiled. "Nora, you look tired." My mother flinched at the old name. He knew. Of course he knew. "We don't want to hurt anyone," he said. "We want restoration." "What does that mean?" I asked. He looked at me with almost fatherly patience. "Your family took something that never belonged to them. records, names, proof. We have spent generations correcting that damage. By hunting people, by finding stolen history. His language was clean. People like him kept violence in polished words. My phone buzzed from the bed, then my mother's, then the house phone downstairs. All at once, a chorus of electronic panic. Emails flooded in. From my account, messages I did not write. To my professor, to my mother's employer, to the police, to myself. Confessions, threats, unstable, frightened words arranged in my style. My stomach turned. The man on the screen watched my reaction. "You see the problem with identity," he said. "It is only as strong as the systems that confirm it." My mother unplugged the laptop. The screen went black, but his voice continued from my phone. "You can stop running. Give us the box." Then Eli's voice came through. Soft. "Close. Maya, I'm outside." I went to the window. Across the street, under the buzzing street lamp, Eli stood in the rain. No umbrella. Looking up at my room, my mother grabbed my arm. "We leave now." We took the fire escape. I remember cold metal under my palms, rain in my hair, my mother's breathing. The alley below smelled like wet cardboard and gasoline. Somewhere above us, a window opened. Footsteps in the apartment. Not ours. We reached the ground and ran. The city became fragments. Neon reflections. Empty bus stops. Tires hissing through puddles. A cafe closing for the night. Soft jazz leaking out as the door opened, then shutting into silence. My mother led me to the central police station. Detective Marin listened because my mother had brought the box. Not the whole truth. Proof. Names. Accounts. Old ledgers scanned onto a drive hidden inside the metal lining. Evidence of identity fraud, forged records, coercion, bribery. Not ancient history. Recent transactions. Modern victims. Dating app profiles built to lure descendants. Fake therapist accounts. Burner phones. AI voice clones. Tracking links embedded in ancestry websites. People did not need to believe in a century-old conspiracy. They only needed to follow the money. The police placed us in a safe room with humming fluorescent lights and vending machine coffee. My mother sat beside me, holding my hand like I was 6 years old. At 3:11 a.m., my phone buzzed one last time. "Eli, you trusted me because I listened." I stared at the message. Then another came. Asterisk, that is not weakness. It is design, asterisk. The door opened. Detective Marin entered. We found the apartment he was using. She placed printed photos on the table. Me leaving class. Me in the library. Me asleep at my desk, taken through the window. My mother outside the grocery store. Our house. Our mailbox. My professor. Eli had been a constructed identity. Fake enrollment. Fake records. Real face, false life. His job was to get close before the archive applied pressure. There were others. Other students. Other families. Other names with no roots. By dawn, police arrested 3 people, including the man from the video call. His real name was Adrian Voss. He called himself a preservationist. The press called him the head of a private archival crime network. I watched his arrest later on the news in a motel room with the curtains closed. He did not struggle. He looked irritated, as if reality had made an administrative error. Eli disappeared. For 2 weeks, I saw him everywhere. In reflections, in crowds, in the dark glass of cafes. Then they found him at a train station with 4 burner phones, 3 passports, and my grandmother's name written on a folded paper in his pocket. He told police he had never intended to hurt me. That phrase again, as if harm requires blood, as if studying a person's grief and using it as a doorway is not violence. The trial lasted longer than my attention span for fear. My professor gave me an extension on the family tree project. I turned in 1 page. No chart. Just a sentence. Some roots are buried not because they are dead, but because something once learned to follow them. He gave me an A. My mother and I moved again. Not far. A smaller apartment. Better locks. No first-floor windows. We rebuilt our lives in quiet, practical ways. New passwords, new phones, new routines, fewer posts, no location sharing, no public family photos. Sometimes she tells me stories now, small ones. My grandmother liked black coffee. My grandfather sang badly. Our family name was not always Ellery, but it is ours because we survived inside it. I still research sometimes, carefully, offline when I can. Libraries, paper, human archivists with tired eyes and ink on their fingers. I no longer believe everyone comes from somewhere simple. Some people come from rupture, from escape, from documents folded into coat linings, from mothers who lied because fear had taught them that truth was a luxury. I used to think identity was a tree, roots, branches, names. Now I think identity is also a door. It decides what enters, what stays outside, what is allowed to call itself family. At night, when rain taps the window and the refrigerator hums, I still check the street below. Sometimes a man in a gray coat is only a man in a gray coat. Sometimes soft attention is only kindness. I try to remember that. I try not to let fear become my inheritance. But I also know this now. Privacy is not emptiness. Silence is not always shame. And trust should never require you to hand someone the map of every place you have been hurt. Because there are people in this world who do not fall in love with you. They investigate you. They learn your names. They learn your wounds. They learn the shape of your loneliness. And if you are not careful, they will call that knowledge intimacy. They will call obsession memory. They will call possession history. But a family is not the records that prove it existed. A family is what survives after someone tries to erase the proof. And sometimes the only way to keep your roots alive is to stop showing the world exactly where they are buried. Story 10. The house chose my sister before I understood what choosing meant. Her room was bigger. Her blankets were softer. Her birthday cakes had real candles, while mine had the cheap kind that bent in the frosting. Grandmother gave her gold earrings when she turned 8. I got a book about discipline. Everyone called it tradition. That was the word adults used when cruelty had been polished long enough to look sacred. Every generation has one, my father said. One what? He smiled without warmth. One child the house trusts. I was 14 then, standing in the hallway while rain tapped against the tall windows. The floorboards creaked under my socks. Somewhere downstairs, the refrigerator hummed like an old animal. My sister, Nora, stood at the end of the hall, silent, obedient, wearing the blue dress grandmother bought her. She looked at me like she wanted to speak. Then the house settled. A long wooden groan moved through the walls, and Nora looked down. After my mother left, the silence got worse. Father said she was fragile. Grandmother said she was ungrateful. Grandfather said nothing at all. He only sat by the fireplace, listening to soft jazz on an old radio, while rain blurred the windows behind him. I learned early that questions made adults tired, so I stopped asking them. Years later, after a breakup that left me hollow and suspicious of kindness, I came back to the house for grandmother's funeral. The city looked cold through the taxi window. Neon signs bled across wet streets. Cafes glowed like small aquariums. People sat inside them with warm cups and clean lives. I felt like a ghost returning to the scene of its own haunting. Nora was 20 now. She met me at the door. Still beautiful. Still quiet. Still wrong. You came, she said. I said I would. You used to say many things. Her voice was calm, but it had no softness left in it. Behind her, the house breathed. Old wood, damp stone, furniture polish, rain. My father appeared in the hallway, older but not weaker. His hair had gone silver at the temples. His eyes were still sharp. Eli, he said, the prodigal son. I'm here for Nora. No, he said gently. You're here because the house called you back. I almost laughed. Almost. That night, I slept in my old room. Nothing had changed. Same narrow bed. Same cracked mirror. Same stain on the ceiling shaped like a bird with broken wings. At 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Don't let them finish preparing her. I sat up. Rain tapped the glass. The hallway outside my door creaked once. Then again. Footsteps. Slow. Barefoot. I opened the door. Nora stood in the hall, facing the wall. Nora? She did not turn. The house likes you better when you don't fight, she whispered. What? She looked over her shoulder. For a second, she looked terrified. Then her face emptied. I wanted to believe it, she said, and walked away. The next morning, a man named Daniel Vale came to breakfast. He was introduced as a family archivist. He wore a dark coat, round glasses, and a voice soft enough to trust. He asked about my life in the city, my work, my breakup, the apartment I barely slept in. You've been isolated, he said. I looked up. That obvious? To people who know what loneliness does. I hated how comforting that felt. Daniel seemed kind, careful. He listened without interrupting. When my father spoke over me, Daniel's eyes flicked toward mine, as if to say, I see it too. After breakfast, he found me in the library. Soft jazz played from somewhere behind the shelves. You were always the angry one, he said. I stiffened. You don't know me. No, he said, but the records do. He showed me a leather-bound family book. Birth certificates, name changes, property transfers, photographs. Every generation had a chosen child. Every chosen child stood in front of the house. Straight posture, blank expression, same distant eyes, and every generation changed names afterward. The Barrows became the Wrens became the Valles became us. Why? I asked. Daniel closed the book. Protection. From what? He looked toward the ceiling. From what follows families that refuse to stay dead. I told myself it was metaphor, old money paranoia, family myth. I told myself it made sense. Then I found my mother's emails. They were hidden on an old laptop in the attic, beneath boxes of Christmas ornaments and moth-eaten coats. The battery was swollen. The keys were sticky with dust. One folder was labeled, Nora/preparation. Inside were messages between my father, grandmother, Daniel Vale, and someone using only initials. They discussed sleep restriction, voice conditioning, social isolation, obedience reinforcement, digital erasure, new passports, new names. There were voice notes too. Nora repeating phrases in a flat voice. I belong to the house. I do not answer outsiders. My old name is not safe. Then a recording of my mother, crying, please don't do this to her. A second voice answered, Daniels. She was chosen before birth. You knew the terms. My stomach went cold. The attic roof clicked above me. Rain hit the shingles like fingernails. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Your mother didn't leave. She ran. They caught her once. She got away the second time. Asterisk asterisk. A file attached. A location. A cafe in the city. I drove there that afternoon. The cafe sat beneath a broken neon sign, windows fogged from heat and rain. Inside, soft jazz played. Cups clinked. The espresso machine hissed like steam escaping a wound. A woman sat in the back booth. Older. Thinner. But I knew her before she looked up. My mother. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then she said, You look like him now. I sat down slowly. Everyone said you left us. I tried to take you both. Her hands trembled around the cup. They let me keep you because you weren't chosen. Nora was the asset. The asset. Her eyes filled. That family doesn't believe the house is alive, Eli. That's just the story they tell children. The house is infrastructure. Cameras. Hidden rooms. Old accounts. Legal identities. People placed in clinics, schools, offices. Every generation they choose one child to carry the next identity. Why? Because someone has been hunting them for decades. Who? She looked toward the rain-black window. Families they destroyed. Children they took. People whose names they stole. The truth did not arrive like thunder. It arrived like a door quietly unlocking. The house did not protect the chosen child. It prepared them to become someone else. To disappear cleanly. to inherit the lies. That night, I went back for Nora. The house was dark when I arrived. No lights except the library lamp. The refrigerator hummed in the kitchen. Rain tapped the windows. Somewhere upstairs, floorboards creaked under a careful weight. Nora's room was empty. On her bed lay a blue dress, folded perfectly. Beside it, a passport. Different name. Different birthday. Her photo. My father found me holding it. "You're sentimental," he said. "You're trafficking your own daughter into a fake life." He sighed. "You still think identity is sacred. It isn't. It's paperwork and witnesses." "Where is she?" "Being protected. Prepared." His eyes sharpened. Daniel appeared behind him, holding my phone. "You should have locked this better," he said. His kindness was gone. Or maybe it had only been costume. "We saw every message," he said. "Your mother always was careless with hope." My father stepped closer. "You were easier before the city taught you self-pity." "No," I said. "I was easier before I knew what obedience cost." From above us came a sound. A thud. Then Nora's voice through the vent. "Eli." My father looked up. For the first time, I saw fear. Not of me, of her waking up. I ran. Daniel grabbed my coat, but I twisted free and slammed into the hallway wall. Pain flashed white through my shoulder. Behind me, my father shouted my name like he still owned it. Upstairs, Nora was locked in grandmother's old room. The chosen room. The big room. The beautiful room. The prison. I broke the door with a fireplace iron. Nora stood by the window, pale and barefoot, holding a burner phone. "They made me call you," she whispered. "I know. No. Before. For years." My chest tightened. "What?" "The birthday messages. The fake accounts. The times you thought someone from home was checking on you." Her voice cracked. "They used me so you'd come back when they needed leverage." The room spun. Every soft message. Every familiar detail. Every old nickname. Not love. Control. Nora held out the phone. "It's recording. Mom told me how." Downstairs, sirens approached. Red and blue light began to pulse through the rain. My mother had gone to the police. This time with evidence. Daniel tried to escape through the garden door. They caught him by the hedges, coat soaked, face finally ordinary. My father did not run. He stood in the foyer beneath the family portraits while officers entered the house. "You have no idea what you've exposed," he told me. "Good." He looked almost sad. "The people hunting us will find you too." "Maybe," I said, "but they'll find me under my own name." Nora cried only after they took him away. Not loudly. Just one broken sound. Like something inside her had been waiting years for permission. The investigation went on for months. There were records in the walls, drives hidden in vents, cameras behind mirrors, passports, bank accounts, adoption documents, death certificates for people still alive. The house had not chosen anyone. People had. People with money, fear, history, and enough patience to call abuse tradition. Nora lives with my mother now. Some days she speaks. Some days she sits by the window and watches rain without blinking. Healing is not cinematic. It is slow, repetitive, undramatic. A body learning that silence is no longer required. I sold the house, or tried to. No one wanted it after the news. So it stands empty at the edge of town, windows dark, walls stripped, floors bare. Sometimes I dream I am back there, the refrigerator humming, soft jazz downstairs, footsteps in the hall, a child behind a locked door being told she is special. I wake in my apartment before dawn, city lights trembling on the ceiling, phone silent on the table. And I remind myself, being chosen is not always love. Attention is not always care. A bigger room can still be a cage. Families can turn identity into inheritance, privacy into property, obedience into survival. The house did not choose one child. The family did. And that is what still frightens me. Not haunted walls, not old portraits, not rain against dark windows, but the quiet human talent for building a prison and calling it home.